Scientists have just announced that they may have finally made a complete digital model for the mysterious Antikythera mechanism, which is hailed by many researchers as being the world's first computer. Although scientists have known about this device for years, they were never able to replicate the mechanism, answer certain questions about how it was used or what drove the device, and couldn't really reveal much about how it was created. But researchers based at the University of London have said they've finally been able to fully recreate the design. Retrieved from a shipwreck back in May of 1902 off the coast of the Greek island of Antikythera, after which the machine has been named after, the Antikythera mechanism has put historians and archaeologists in a tight spot. After engineers analyzed the machine and realized what it was designed for and its overall purpose, the mechanism itself appears to be an early type of analog computer and was built to be so precise and accurate that it could predict astronomical positions, eclipses, the Fourier cycle of the athletic games, the cycle of the ancient Olympic Games, and other important events decades in advance. After intensive carbon dating, it was found that the Antikythera machine was created by Greek scientists between 150 and 100 BC. Eons ahead of previously known knowledge about the extensive intelligence and craftsmanship of the ancient Greek civilization. This meant that the device seemed to have held advanced information that archaeologists, historians, and other experts did not believe existed for another few centuries. Many have begun to speculate that perhaps our early ancestors were far more capable than we may have ever realized, and that perhaps their technology was much more advanced than we could have ever known. This is only what to challenge modern theories of ancient civilizations and has led some theorists to believe that perhaps there were more analog computer devices around the same time. Although many treasures had been excavated from the seafloor during an expedition in 1976. Underwater explorers who conducted the more recent expedition noticed several features around the site that might indicate that even more treasures still remain buried out of sight. That led explorers to continue to excavate and test the sites, and this was worth doing as their suspicions and patience paid off. First wooden hull remains along with large bronze nails and spikes that were used in construction of the hull began to be uncovered. The researchers at the University of London have said they're going to put their creation to the test and see if the copied design works. One of the researchers who worked on the project said the following: "Our work reveals the Antikythera mechanism as a beautiful conception translated by superb engineering into a device of genius. It challenges all our preconceptions about the technological capabilities of the ancient Greeks." End quote. The main reason for the researchers recreating the device is because there's still many unanswered questions, with them saying it just goes to show how ahead this is. Because it's taken them a long time to get to this point, and yet we still have many questions. Another researcher said the following: "The distance between this device's complexity and others made at the same time is infinite. Frankly, there's nothing like it that's ever been found. It's out of this world. What is it doing on that ship? We only found 1/3. Where are the other 2/3? Have they corroded away? Did it ever work?" These are questions that we can only really answer through experimental archaeology. It's like answering how they built Stonehenge. Let's get 200 people with some rope and a big stone and try to pull it across Salisbury Plain. That's a bit like what we're trying to do. There's no evidence that the ancient Greeks were able to build something like this. It really is a mystery. The only way to test if they could is try to build it the ancient Greek way. And there's also a lot of debate about who it was for and who built it. A lot of people say it was Archimedes. He lived around the same time it was constructed, and no one else had the same level of engineering ability that he did. It was also a Roman shipwreck. Archimedes was taken out by Romans. End quote. Although researchers are closer to recreating this incredible device, we are still no closer to understanding how they built it. Interestingly, this isn't the first time that Archimedes' name is popped up when talking about advanced creations. One of his best inventions was the mythical heat ray that was used by Archimedes to fight back an entire army. According to the legend, back in 212 BC, inventor and philosopher Archimedes was at the shore of a massive siege between his own people and a number of Roman warships during the siege of Syracuse. Made entirely aware that his people were both outnumbered and outmatched, Archimedes began constructing what was referred to as a burning glass that would be able to burn the Roman warships and protect his people. A number of the legends and different variations exist that claims he used one large mirror to reflect the direct sunlight, whereas others claim he used the shields of 70 soldiers to redirect the light at the warships to catch them on fire. This legend has often been challenged by a number of researchers, claiming that such a story is completely fabricated and that the physics of the encounter doesn't seem to add up. This led to the TV show Mythbusters attempting to recreate the event, only to find that they were unable to ignite a model ship. Regardless of these finds, many still believe the event had occurred at one time. Given the fact that the legend has been recorded by both Greek and Roman historians, and after discoveries such as the Antikythera mechanism, it does make you question how many other inventions have been lost to time. The incredible civilization of ancient Egypt is one that's not only impressive but also shrouded in mystery. Every year people take photographs of the impressive structures, but once in a while a photograph will be shared that shows something mysterious in the background. This is what happened when someone took this photograph of the iconic structures. The image in question seems to show two pyramid-like objects, along with two white arms. This excited many UFO researchers, as for years they've been saying that the Egyptians were visited by extraterrestrials. As I've mentioned before, one of the earliest UFO encounters was said to have been detailed in an old Egyptian papyrus, with the witnesses saying that the objects were brighter than the sun, even going on to detail them as a circle of fire or a fiery disk. This is just one of the reasons why people think that the ancient Egyptians may have had outside help. Once shared to UFO groups, believers started to theorize about what these objects were. Some said that the pyramid-shaped UFO is not often seen, with the triangle and disc being some of the most common ones, but further saying that the large pyramid crafts have been reported by people all across the world, and have said that the majority of reports follow a similar theme, saying that these crafts are usually large and don't make a sound. Others noted that the orb-shaped objects in the background are usually seen close to larger graphs, saying that some UFO researchers believe that these orbs are like drones for the bigger graphs. Skeptics said, though, that there's a chance the images are fake and that just because strange shapes are seen above the pyramids, we shouldn't just jump to UFOs. This isn't the only mystery of ancient Egypt. Ancient Egypt is perhaps one of the most interesting civilizations that's graced our planet. Still, to this day, various questions have been unanswered, and every year new discoveries are still being made that give us an insight into their way of life. Though many historians and Egyptologists originally believed that the ancient Egyptian civilization only had a basic system of linear mathematics, this theory proved to be completely untrue. It appears that not only were the mathematical developments far more superior than previously understood, but that work to uncover more of their discoveries is still ongoing, as it appears their mathematics might be more advanced than our own understanding today. Today, the capital city Cairo holds the location of antique building site the Egyptian Museum, which contains some of the world's most impressive historical artifacts. The Great Pyramid of Giza is a true ancient engineering wonder. This pyramid is not only among the ancient world's 7 wonders, but it's the oldest and most historical amongst them. In fact, it's the only one among those wonders that stood the test of time and is still standing to date. Researchers have been fascinated with this ancient structure, and mainly because there's still many unanswered questions that Egyptologists and researchers can't seem to agree on. One of the most interesting conversations is that of the missing capstone. The last thing to be placed on the pyramid would have been that of the capstone. Interestingly, over the years some researchers have suggested there wasn't a capstone at all, and instead the pyramid would have had an empty space at the top. However, other researchers have dismissed these claims and said that no ruler would have left a job unfinished, and would have demanded that an impressive capstone sat at the top of the pyramid. Devoid of its original coating of white limestone blocks, the Great Pyramid also lacks its summit, which gave it approximately another 9 meters in height. Many people believe that the capstone of the Great Pyramid of Giza was made of gold and it was somehow removed from the top of the pyramid in the distant past. But some have struggled to imagine someone removing a capstone made entirely out of gold from the top of the pyramid. Interestingly, one theory proposed by Spanish researcher Miguel Pérez Sánchez indicates that the Great Pyramid wasn't left unfinished and that a massive sphere was located on its surface. Pérez Sánchez proposes that the sphere the ancient Egyptians placed at the top of the pyramid symbolizes the Eye of Horus, had a diameter of 2,718 royal cubits of 2.7 meters. The sphere located on the pyramid was placed as a worship to the sun and Sirius, the brightest star in the sky. In addition of the sphere located on the top of the pyramid, analysis enabled researchers to find out the inclination angle 5,184 degrees, the platform that supported the sphere with a pi perimeter of royal cubits, and the height of the pyramidal vertex of 277,778 cubits. According to Perez Sanchez, the discovery of the original shape and dimensions of the Great Pyramid, its reconstruction and analysis revealed an architecture made of pure mathematics, geometry, and astronomy. Many have said that such an impressive structure must hold all kinds of secrets. There's no doubt that a lot of hard work and resilience went into building this giant structure, which some researchers have said was initially built as a tomb. Studies have shown that it must have taken roughly a decade or two to build this structure. Standing at 481 feet at the time, the pyramid would have held the title of the tallest structure any man has ever built. Although researchers and explorers cannot boldly say that they've uncovered all of the secrets of the Great Pyramid just yet, they have uncovered quite a lot of its secrets in the past couple of years. The Great Pyramid of Giza is estimated to have a volume of around 2,583,283 cubic meters. This data goes to show that this pyramid is a truly monumental structure. In order to build such a massive structure, millions of stones, each weighing an average of 3 tons, were moved to the site. Tons of granite and millions of limestone were also made use of to build this incredible piece of art. As huge as the Great Pyramid of Giza is, there are many who believe that the builders weren't actually able to complete its construction and that they may have had help. Every year new interesting discoveries are made, but some of these even divide scientists and don't ever get fully explained. This is what happened when a mysterious-looking creature was discovered in Russia. The odd-looking creature was found in the Leningrad region in the town of Sosnovybar. The town was built in the 1950s to serve the Leningrad nuclear plant. A woman by-in said she came across it while she was wading in shallow waters close to the nuclear power plant. As she picked up the creature, she couldn't identify what it was and so showed her friend, who said it looked like an undeveloped animal, suggesting that it may have been something like a mutant chicken embryo. Biologist Yegor Zadriev at the Institute of Biophysics was puzzled, saying the following: "It seems that this body is neither fish nor fowl. This creature has a mysterious skull, no neck, and no wings. Extensive studies are needed to determine what kind of creature or organism this is." End quote. The creature soon started to get the attention of scientists and researchers, and it was then sent to Moscow for further studies. The chicken embryo theory is the one that's used by most people to explain what this creature is, but as pointed out by locals, the Leningrad nuclear plant has a history of covering things up. And it's even led some to suggest that the area around the plant is dangerous for wildlife, leading to these abnormalities that officials would want to keep under wraps. According to a former Russian federal investigator for nuclear and radiation safety, Vladimir Konstantov, said the area has a dark history and one that officials don't want the public knowing about. 3 people had lost their lives when a cooling unit ruptured. On top of this, there's been various fires and even radiation spills that were detected over 4 miles away from the plant. Researchers have said these spills could deform some of the local wildlife. Others said that perhaps animal testing was going on in the area and one of these creatures managed to escape, eventually being found by the woman in the nearby river. As of right now, there's not much information that can be found on this mysterious creature, with amateur researchers saying that it looks like officials may have found something out about this creature that they don't want the public to know about. One person said the following: "It's strange how this creature was having tests done on it and being sent to labs, but now we have no answer for what they found. I've never seen a creature that looks like this." End quote. As of right now, it's anyone's guess as to what this odd-looking creature is and whether it's the result of a chemical spill, an undeveloped embryo, or perhaps extraterrestrial in nature. The oceans and rivers of the world are some of the most mysterious places, and over the years people have discovered and encountered strange things that not only baffled them but also the researchers who have gone on to investigate them. One such creature has become known as the black demon shark. Over the last 20 years, it's been spotted off the shores of Mexico's Baja California peninsula. These reports and sightings have been made by a number of fishermen across the Mexican coast that claim to see a massive black shark roughly 60 feet in length and resembling the build of a great white shark, but with that of a dark coloration across its body and a massively sized fin. Given the fact that many of these reports fit many of the modern-day recreations using megalodon skeletons, it's led many to believe that it could be a possible hunting ground for the creature. Additionally, many of the fishermen that have reported the sighting have often been veterans in the field, never having once claimed such sightings in the past and having more than enough experience with different species of whales throughout the region. What's interesting about these reports is that we have proof that at one point in time these creatures were swimming in our oceans. Going back in the 1960s, there appeared to be another widely reported sighting of a megalodon creature in the modern day. According to the report, a captain of a 50-foot-long fishing ship claimed that a massive white shark, larger than the boat itself, passed by while the captain and crew were sitting at anchor. When people began to question the captain and claim that it had been nothing more than a whale, he continued to claim he was an experienced fisherman and was well aware of what a whale looked like. He confirmed that it was indeed a larger shark and that it was not similar to that of a whale of any kind. Some people who have researched these cases have said these individuals encountered everyday wildlife. But as some have pointed out, it's very unlikely these people would mistake everyday wildlife for a giant shark. As of today, it's not known what these individuals encountered. Scientists have said the giant megalodon shark is now extinct and hasn't been in our oceans for at least a couple million years, yet well-seasoned fishermen are clearly seeing something. Other fishermen have come forward and said they think there may be giant great white sharks that being misidentified. Some have claimed to have seen great white sharks pushing 30 to 40 feet. Marine officials have said this is a more likely answer but still question this theory, as great white sharks are said to reach a maximum length of 20 feet. However, according to J. Randall, the largest great white shark reliably measured was found in Ledge Point, Western Australia in 1987 and is said to have measured at least 6 meters. Around a decade later, in 1988, the Canadian Shark Research Centre captured and verified a large female great white shark. This was off the coast of Alberta in Prince Edward Island, and it measured 6.1 meters. Furthermore, a great white captured off the coast of Malta in 1987 is said to have measured an estimated 7.13 meters. Photographic evidence of the shark dubbed Malta was thoroughly examined and was found to confirm this estimation, even suggesting it was larger than previously thought. This suggests that great white sharks can grow up to 7 meters, a vast jump from the previous known size of 4.9 to 6.1 meters. A new discovery has just been made close to Antarctica, and it's got people questioning what it is and how long it's been there. For large pyramids can be seen close to Antarctica, with many being confused, saying that they look very similar to the large pyramids found in Egypt, further saying they could have been placed here by ancient civilizations. Pyramid-like structures are certainly nothing new, with some of the oldest pyramids on our planet being found in Egypt, and being dated to over 4,000 years old. However, this date has been disputed by many, saying that advanced civilizations may have built these giant structures and that it was the Egyptians who found them. One such place that backs up this theory is that of Teotihuacan, with historians saying that Teotihuacan is older than the Aztec people and that it's not known which culture or civilization created Teotihuacan. The same theory is being applied to these mysterious structures, with people saying they don't look like mountains or anything natural, saying that you can see they look like they've been placed in a straight line. When the images were shared to groups online who study ancient structures and artifacts, even they were confused about what had been discovered, with various members saying that these are some of the best images of underwater pyramids that they've seen. One person said the following: "Some of the underwater pyramids that have been presented in the past don't look anything like pyramids and just look like natural underwater features that are in the shape of a pyramid. The fact that this image looks similar to the pyramids in Egypt when viewed from above is certainly interesting. This doesn't mean that something otherworldly created them, but it could certainly mean that there's a lost civilization close by, and that in itself is incredibly interesting." End quote. Taking measurements will show you that these 4 structures measure 7,108 meters or 23,320 feet. Scientists and historians have said that Antarctica does not and has never had any civilizations inhabit there. Yet when these types of discoveries are made, it causes people to question this idea. Another person said the following: "We should be following the facts and not just statements. The fact is that there are 4 large structures that look like pyramids just outside of Antarctica. So what we should be doing is sending a team there to go and investigate if it's anything of interest. Even if it turns out to be nothing, at least we'll have an answer." These days people will say things like they're not pyramids because scientists say that no one has ever lived there before. But that statement only works all the time that no discoveries are being made. Every year we are finding out more and more things about Antarctica, and we shouldn't be afraid of going against the grain when interesting discoveries are being made. End quote. This is a fair statement, as in the past many scientists have been proven wrong. One of these examples is that of the coelacanth. This creature was swimming around in our oceans hundreds of millions of years ago, and scientists said it became extinct around 80 million years ago. But in 1938, a living coelacanth was discovered in the Indian Ocean near the southern coast of Africa. Incredibly, these creatures have been living since the time of the dinosaurs. With this much evidence gathered by the scientific community, it's no surprise then that it appears there are large tales involving the existence of real-life encounters with ancient creatures, and these have continued into the modern day. It's creatures like the coelacanth that prove that scientists can be wrong. And the same applies with these kinds of structures. Unless we've gone there and investigated it, we can't say for sure that these aren't pyramids. This isn't the only pyramid-like structure that's been found underwater. Pauline Zalitsky, a marine engineer, and her husband own a company based in Canada called Advanced Digital Communications. They were working on a survey mission in conjunction with the Cuban government off the coast of Cuba. Advanced Digital Communications were one of the 4 firms working in venture with Fidel Castro's government, and this was to explore Cuban waters. Their primary interest was finding treasure shipwrecks from the Spanish colonial era. The team was using heavily advanced equipment to scan the area when they noticed these bizarre structures. Some of these structures were found with smooth blocks and geometric shapes. Other blocks appear to be built into pyramid shapes. Others were completely circular. Months later, they returned to the site with another geologist. Knowing what they would find in the area, they returned with the appropriate technology to examine and record the structures. The large blocks seemed to resemble granite. The main piece of this is so confusing that it would have taken around 50,000 years for such structures to have sunk into their depths. The catch is that 50,000 years ago, there was not the architectural capacity in any of the cultures we are aware of that time, and that they wouldn't have been able to build such complex things. Despite such a media flurry, this story was soon buried in the sites left unresearched. Quick dismissal of the story has led some to question on whether or not there has been suppression of information regarding the finding. Whether the leads went cold or that this is something that we were not meant to find, we might never know. It's discoveries like these that have caused some to say this is a perfect example of scientists ignoring the facts and going with the narrative rather than doing genuine investigations. As of 2018, the Ocean Service has said that over 80% of our oceans are unexplored. Although many have said that space is one of the last unexplored frontiers, the argument could also be made that our oceans make that list. After all, we've done a great job at mapping hard-to-reach regions on our planet, but haven't yet managed to research certain regions of our oceans. Time travel is an interesting topic. There's various stories floating around online of people who claim to have time traveled. Although these stories are interesting and they make you think about the future, scientists have said that none of them are true. They are all made up and that there's no evidence that anyone has ever time traveled. Regardless, this hasn't stopped people from coming forward with their stories of time travel. One time traveler who wishes to stay anonymous came forward and detailed what they saw in the future. They said that they worked for a government project that selected a few individuals to be part of a top-secret mission. The man didn't go into detail about the project, but said that during the process the candidates were kept in the dark in regards to what the mission was about and didn't find out until last minute that they would be part of a group that would time travel. The only credentials he listed was that he was high up in the military, had dedicated his life to the services, didn't have family, and didn't have any children, saying that this was one of the requirements needed in order to be part of the team. The man detailed that energy never leaves the universe and that once it's out there it can still be seen if you have the correct machinery. The device that allowed him to time travel would lock onto these clusters of energy that were floating around in the universe, and in turn the machine would turn them into moving images. He also detailed that there was another machine that would allow you to travel forwards in time or at least see events that would play out in the future. He said the following: many time travel claims may not be wrong. What I may have seen on one timeline may not match up with what someone else has seen on another. There's countless possibilities that could happen to our universe in the future, and when we look onto these cosmic energies, we are just seeing one possibility out of an infinite number of possibilities. End quote. The man detailed that our future doesn't look bright, or that the timeline in which he saw doesn't look good for humanity. He detailed that mass famine will spread across the world in the next 100 years and that freedom will be virtually non-existent. He details that this doesn't plan out in the way that many people think it would, saying that there's not a horrible leader, but rather the vast majority of humans voluntarily give up their freedom without knowing. He said that doing basic things in the future will be tough for the majority of humanity, also noting that the human population levels out at around 10 billion people. He says that by 2150, 4 billion people will be very poor and will struggle to drink and eat. He said that there will be an overruling one-world government that will lay out plans to help these people live. But in doing so, the majority of their freedom will be given up because they can't afford to own anything. The man ended by saying this is just one outcome he saw and that it doesn't necessarily mean that it will come true. Regardless, though, he did warn that if we stay on the same path we're on, it will greatly affect humanity in the long run. Other alleged time travelers have said that the future they've seen will not benefit the majority of humanity and that we need to change our ways. Our non-users have heard these stories, have given their opinions, with some believing them while others have said they're just stories. One or non-users said the following: "This part of me that wants to believe that time travelers are real, but then the other part of me doesn't want to believe this happens. Part of me also thinks that these people may be part of the top 1% and that they're sending a warning out to us, but using the disguise as being a time traveler so they don't out themselves." I've heard a few of these time travel stories and some of them detail the same thing. Perhaps it's someone trying to warn us about the future and that they're trying to open our eyes to what's going on before it's too late. End quote. Well, this person doesn't buy into the idea that people can time travel, saying the following: "Although I like to hear these kinds of stories, to me they're just fiction. It's just someone making up stories for entertainment purposes." Scientists have said in regards to time travel that although evidence of this being able to occur in our universe is yet to be proven, according to the efforts made in understanding gravitational waves and the warping of space and time, Einstein came across a strange revelation when it came to understanding the nature of distance in the universe. It was originally believed in classical physics that the shortest possible distance between 2 points was that of a straight line drawn between both points. However, Einstein challenged this idea by noting that the very fabric of space and time could be warped and bent, meaning that the shortest distance between 2 points is rather the 2 points being directly folded on top of each other. His analogy was often compared to a worm and an apple. Rather than going around the surface of the apple to get to the other side, the worm could burrow through the apple, creating a hole in the surface and appearing directly on the other side. It's of no surprise then that this theoretical tear through the fabric of space and time is referred to as that of a wormhole. This means that if properly achieved, movement across the universe could be shortened to something known as instantaneous transportation. This means that rather than traveling any distance whatsoever, theoretically one would have to travel no distance at all and would seemingly appear at the desired location at any distance across the universe. Once the mechanisms for how such a movement is achieved, it would be possible that to travel between planets, we would not even have to exit the atmosphere to appear on the other side of the universe. This photograph was taken in Indian Wales, Arizona. After the individuals sent it to a website that looks into dogman sightings, no other information was given. All the posters said was that they saw the creature when walking home and said that it looks like a giant dog. Those who've seen the image have labeled it as one of the best dogman photos we have. Cryptid researchers who studied the creature have noticed that it's elusive. Encounters with the dogman happen very quickly, with those involved more concerned about getting to safety rather than taking photographs. The image shows what looks like a canine-looking creature with a large head, broad shoulders, black and brown fur, 2 eyes and nose, and its mouth open. Interestingly though, there's no shortage of these types of stories, and for years now people across the world have been encountering a large dog-like creature. This person shared their story. The year of my encounter was 2015, and it happened at the Wise River, Montana at 11:30 p.m. I lived alone, and in this remote location we don't have cable, so the only option is satellite TV. It was a humid summer night in July and the TV was acting up, so I needed to go out and readjust the satellite. I took a flashlight and a firearm with me. When I went outside it was unusually quiet. I also purchased an AR due to other sightings I've had, but they weren't credible enough to chalk it up to a dogman. The silence was unnerving. I brushed the thought off and went to the dish, which is in the corner of my yard. I went to work making sure all the wires were all right and pointing it to a different angle. Suddenly, I heard a small snap of a stick to my left and turned the flashlight to the direction and saw a creature standing there. I got a good look at it for what seemed like an eternity, but if I had to guess, I'd say it was only for around 10 seconds. I slowly backed off and ran back to the house and locked all the doors and windows. The creature was unlike anything I'd seen before. When I shined the light at it, the first thing I saw was the head. It had cropped ears that pointed upwards. Its snout was more narrow than a bear's, and I could see large teeth protruding from the jaw. Its eyes were a deep red shade that seemed to reflect off the light I was pointing at it. The body was muscular and huge. It had long arms that appeared to be longer than its legs, broad shoulders that tapered into a skinnier waist. It was slightly crouched over when I saw it, with one hand wrapped around a small tree. I could make out the legs, which looked similar to a dog's legs. It had obvious hogs. Even with the crouched position, it was around my height, which is 6 foot. Standing up to 4 height, this creature could easily be 7.5 feet tall. The fur was black and thicker around the neck and chest, and the bottom half less so. I don't know if it was aggressive or not. What I know is I had a feeling of dread unlike anything I've ever experienced. Was it just observing me or stalking me? For a creature this large, it was deceivingly silent. It got within 15 yards of me without me noticing. All I knew was I needed to get out of there and not find out. I don't live on the property anymore, but after the event, I've never had another face-to-face encounter. I would hear sounds in the woods I couldn't explain. They would start off relatively quiet and work their way up to furious howls and screams, then back down to quiet again. I don't know if this was the same thing because it could have been local wildlife. Another person detailed their encounter with this creature, saying the following: "I live in the northwestern south of Michigan, and we have this legend called the Dog Man. It's basically a werewolf. I was 9 years old when this happened. At that point, I still shared a room with my sister, and so my bed was on a wall with a big window on the opposite side. My sister's bed was right underneath that window. We were on the first floor of the house, but we lived on a hill, so it slanted, and so is a pretty high window around 9 feet off the ground. I woke up one Saturday night feeling really thirsty. It was around 2 in the morning and everyone else in my family was asleep. I was about to crawl out of bed to go to the bathroom just down the hall when I looked at the window and froze. At the bottom of the window there was a really dark shape. It looked like the top part of a Siberian husky. It was big, with 2 points that looked like ears on the top. I couldn't make out any other features. I thought that maybe something in my room was causing a reflection in the window, but this wasn't the case, as the creature then moved. The ears were also twitching, which told me that this wasn't a reflection. The Dogman story is really big here, and we live right in the woods, so I immediately thought it could have been the Dogman. The thing that really stumps me is how anything would manage to stay up by a window that's taller than the average man. Since I was young, I do accept that it was a possibility, I just imagined it. But I really do believe that there was something outside the window. Scotland has the Loch Ness Monster. And it seems that North America has the Dogman, oddly enough, although it seems there's no way such a creature could exist. Every year many people detail their reports. The 7-foot creature has even made it onto the news, but as of right now there's no definitive proof of the Dogman. Believers have said the creature is similar to Bigfoot in that it's elusive and that various theorists have been presented to explain it. From the creature being an experiment that went wrong to it being an undiscovered species. All we have to go by is a few photographs that eyewitnesses managed to take. Photographs have been taken in India showing what appears to be a mysterious entity walking the streets. The photos were even covered by the news, with them describing it as a large humanoid with long limbs having a grayish and yellowish body that reflected light, a large head with 2 black eyes, and walking in a mysterious manner. Once the photographs were released, various theories were put forward by locals and those who saw the broadcast. Residents said that the humanoid could be seen walking down a road and walking across a bridge in Jharkhand, which is located in eastern India. The photographs started to emerge on the 28th of May, with residents saying that it could be seen near the newly constructed bridge, but said that they couldn't identify what it was or what it was doing there. Bikers in the region said they stopped to get a better look at it, saying that it stood out due to its skin that reflected their lines. When the photographs were posted to social media, people couldn't seem to agree on what they had captured, with some saying that it looks like an extraterrestrial while others said it looks like the mythical skinwalker, a creature that's said to have the ability to take on the form of other creatures and disguise themselves, while some suggested it was just a resident in the region. Although some pointed out if this was the case the locals wouldn't have acted the way they did. Others close to the region said there's been reports of witches throughout the area and claim that this mysterious being may have been a churl. This creature is well known throughout India, Bangladesh, and Pakistan, and it's been described as an entity that you wouldn't want to run into. The churl is described as the ghost of an impurified living thing. It is also known as the tree spirit, as it tends to latch onto trees in the jungles of Asia. She allegedly takes on the form of a beautiful woman, luring men she wants revenge on into the woods only to take their life or cause them to disappear, never to be seen again. Chills are thought to come from women who've experienced an unnatural loss of life. This is often during pregnancy or childbirth, suffering at the hands of her in-laws. Often churros will haunt the men of a certain family as the spirit of a mistreated woman related to them. Once appearing to men, again often in a jungle, the mountains, or other remote places, she removes her cloak of beauty to reveal a monstrous creature. The true form of the Cairo is a woman with a horrid appearance. Depending on the country from which the legend originates, chills can have black tongues, no mouth at all, a face that resembles a pig, claw-like hands and fangs. Others suggested that the unknown entity may have been an extraterrestrial, saying that above the creature were strange red lights that was seen flying around the area, with locals saying that it seemed that the two were attached to each other. These mysterious lights worried the locals as they said that the beings suddenly appeared out of nowhere. Those who lived close to the bridge suggested that something bad may have happened there, and this is the reason why the entity was seen walking close to it. One idea that was put forward was that the humanoid in question may have been linked to the paranormal. Authorities in Jharkhand have told people to relax and said that they're carrying out their own investigations into what happened, saying that they're currently talking to eyewitnesses who saw the individual and that they hope to get to the bottom of what we've seen. As of right now, though, we have no answers. We only have eyewitness testimonies. Some eyewitnesses took to social media to voice their opinions. One person said the following: "I don't think we're seeing anything strange here. To me, this just looks like someone with bad nutrition. Something that's commonly seen here in India. It's giving off the illusion that it's something else when I think that all we're seeing is a human that's skinny." Another person went down the route of suggesting it was linked to the mysterious lights. They had this to say: "Why were the mysterious lights seen in the sky just moments before this entity turned up? I think that's strange, and I think it proves that something is going on here. It's likely that we won't be told the truth about what was just seen." End quote. One of the most interesting legends to surface from the country of India, and that led to a full-on investigation from police that spanned for several months, was that of the mysterious ship-shifting walls. Back in 1983, there were reported cases of people from India that suddenly went missing. The police later uncovered that the individuals were taken by reported sightings of mysterious wolves. This didn't make sense at first, as there appeared to be no evidence that large wolves were taking these people, as well as the fact that one father reported a wolf standing up and throwing rocks at him as he tried to run after his family member. These strange reports led many locals to believe that perhaps strange supernatural worshippers were living in the region of the sightings, and that they were ultimately behind the mysterious happenings. Sadly, no concrete evidence was ever uncovered that would help authorities answer what happened, and it's due to these stories that some have said that the same will happen again. There's also various areas spread across India that talk of mysterious entities, with locals saying that during the night in certain areas no one dares to venture outside, saying that those who have often gone missing and are never seen from again. It's one of the reasons why locals will keep their distance if they see something like this. As mentioned, though, as of right now, authorities are investigating the matter and have said that once they have an answer for what was seen, they will update the general public. An air traffic controller has just reported that the jet man is back. For those unaware, for the last few years, pilots and air traffic controllers have reported seeing mysterious flying humans, with pilots detailing that at some points these flying beings were able to overtake them. The reports were even passed on to the FBI, but as of right now it's unclear who or what exactly is behind the mysterious sightings. The most recent report came from an air traffic controller who could be heard talking to Sky West Flight. The incident happened yesterday close to Los Angeles International Airport. What's odd is that the majority of these sightings have happened around Los Angeles Airport, although people are confused as to how this flying humanoid is able to overtake planes. At first, it was suggested that it may have been a drone of some sort, but when it was announced that they were flying at incredibly fast speeds, others suggested more out there theories. Last year, pilots reported seeing something similar around the same area, while pilots in England reported that they had seen something similar, noting that the flying humanoids were able to fly hundreds of miles per hour. The report on Wednesday details the following. A Boeing 747 pilot reported seeing an object that might resemble a jetpack 15 miles east of LAX at 5,000 feet altitude. A Federal Aviation Administration spokesperson said in a statement, "Out of an abundance of caution, air traffic controllers alerted other pilots in the vicinity." In recordings obtained by the CVS network, the air traffic controls can be heard saying the following. "SkyWest 3626 used caution. The jetman is back. Let me know if you see him. SkyWest 3626, did you see the UFO? We are looking, but we didn't see Iron Man Evergreen 8023 used caution." There was a report of a man in a jetpack around 5,000 feet in the vicinity of Los Angeles. As of right now, no one knows who is behind the sightings of the flying humanoid. Some amateur pilots have suggested that what's been seen is that of an unidentified flying object, while others have said it could be what's been described, and that's that it's a man on a jetpack flying around Los Angeles. David Mahan, CEO of LA-based Jetpack Aviation, said that he doubts that it's someone using a jetpack, saying the following: "They'd run out of fuel. They used fuel too quickly." Mahan said adding a typical flight time for a jetpack is around 5 to 10 minutes. If it's a real jetpack, it's noisy. People would have heard it take off and land. Others followed on from this and said that it's definitely not someone using a jetpack and that all of the testimonies point towards it being something else, noting that the speeds and the way it's able to change direction proves that it's not someone using a jetpack. One idea is that this could be an unidentified flying object in the shape of a human, as that would explain how it's able to travel so fast and why no one hears it and why it hasn't been captured on video. Although some say this isn't a UFO at this moment in time, technically this is a UFO. It's a flying object that can't be identified. Other amateur researchers have come forward and said this isn't the first time this type of sighting has been reported, going on to say that nearly all of these cases still to this day remain a mystery. The number of pilots who have come forward in detail to see mysterious objects isn't anything new. Perhaps the sad part about this is that most of these get ignored. It seems almost bizarre that someone like a pilot can report seeing something mysterious and no further investigation is carried out. After all, these are the people that spend the most amount of time in the sky. So when they report something strange, it should be taken more seriously. One person said the following: "It's weird how both of these reports have been made so close to one another. It's a really interesting story. Could this be some kind of new technology? This being carried out above Los Angeles? Either way, it's odd that pilots is saying that it looks like a humanoid on a jetpack. To my knowledge, there's no jetpack in the world that's able to take a human to these kinds of heights." End quote. Back in 2014, news broke the pilots on a passenger plane were left confused when they witnessed a flying humanoid going past them at 3,500 feet. They couldn't wrap their heads around how a human was able to zip past them so quick, and secondly, where it had come from. Aviation experts then admitted that they were too baffled by the reported sightings of a flying humanoid. After making the news, the flying humanoid was then given the name of the Superman of Magasfield. Mysterious individual suddenly appeared out of nowhere and was able to overtake the Airbus 320. This was while the plane was flying close to Cheshire Town in England. Pilots and the first officer reported the strange sighting to air traffic control, where at first they thought the individual may have been a paraglider. However, they couldn't see any gear on the humanoid and so ruled this out. Things got even more confusing when air traffic control reported that they hadn't picked anything up on radar. It was as if the mysterious individual had appeared and suddenly vanished. Teams on the ground were sure that the individual that was seen must have been a paraglider. However, further checks were carried out to see if any paragliders or people using parachutes were seen in the area. And it turns out that no one was in the area during the strange encounter. Officials at the UK Airports Board, who investigate near misses in British airspace, came forward and said that they think this is one of those cases that will likely never be solved. The report states the following: they sighted the object a few hundred meters in the 11 o'clock position, 200 to 300 feet above. It passed down the left-hand side of the aircraft at 100 to 200 meters. The crew only saw it fleetingly. There was no time to avoid action, and they reported that they based their assumptions on it being a person under a canopy. But at the time, the skies were clear and the pilots had visibility of around 6 miles. None of them remember seeing a canopy, though. It wasn't long before experts from the British Hand Glutton and Paraglutton Association got involved. And even they said that at the time of the report and due to weather conditions, it would have been impossible for a single flyer to be in the area and traveling at the speeds they were. Last year, over 300,000 trail cameras were sold. These are great for photographing local wildlife and rare animals that are not usually seen by humans. But every so often they manage to capture things that leave us with many questions. This photograph has been posted to various online groups that investigate mysterious creatures. The post reads as follows: "So the person on the left is me walking towards my ladder stand. And it looks like there's a person on the right, but I walked down myself and I didn't hear anything besides myself. I don't know if it was a ghost, a Sasquatch, or an actual person. Give me your opinion." When people first saw this photograph, they could clearly see that it looks like there's something tearing above the man and that it can easily be seen in the right-hand corner, saying that it does look like a Bigfoot. and that it seems like there's something there because the eyes look like they're glowing. Many were impressed with the photograph and said that it looks like the creature is bending down behind the tree and that if it was standing it would be quite a bit taller than the man. One person responded to the post saying the following: "I have been in the exact same situation as the person in the photograph except for the fact that I saw a pair of eyes light up while being on the trail on my own. When I saw them, I immediately froze where I was. I would like to think of myself as a pretty big guy. I'm over 6'2", whatever this thing was, tailed above me. It really did chill me to my core. Due to the darkness, I could only just about see the outline of this thing. And after what seemed like forever, it vanished into the woods. I made it back to my place and I remember feeling empty inside. I couldn't believe what I just encountered. I've never been out there in the dark again and I still think about what it was I encountered that day. I definitely believe that these things are out there and that every so often people do encounter them." One hunter responded with the following: "I spent many hours outdoors and I can tell you that it's definitely not a person standing there. It's way too big and to me it looks like it's crouching. This thing is super wide as well. I don't think I've ever seen a human with that type of build. There's always the chance that it could be nothing and that something in the background is causing it to take on the shape of a humanoid. But to me it looks like that something large is standing back there and it doesn't look human." There's many trail cameras which can be found throughout North America and have also allegedly captured the mysterious Bigfoot. Those who believe in the creature and have conducted various research suggest that it's most commonly found throughout North America, although it's widely believed that it also inhabits various other regions throughout the United States. Others suggest that it may have been a ghost, saying that this isn't the first time that an entity has appeared on a trail camera. Those who follow the paranormal have said that these entities are soulless. They are remaining energy that's trying to find their way. And so no shadow or reflection can be made. As of right now, we don't have much information to go by. These paranormal beings have allegedly turned up in photographs, CCTV cameras, and also trail cameras. But what they are is up for debate. The majority of eyewitnesses who see these entities report them as looking like solid beings. Yet, they appear to have the ability to vanish, and as reported in many stories, they also don't have things like shadows. Paranormal researchers say that although entities and spirits can sometimes appear to be solid, they are in fact just a manifestation. Although they do say that many of them can interact with the living world. This is one of the reasons why they can be felt by people and also picked up in things like trail cameras. Bigfoot is one of the most interesting cryptars out there. Not only because of the stories that's been told about it, but because of the amount of evidence that people have managed to collect. We have footprints, photographs, and videos showing what looks like a large creature inhabiting America. Some of these footprints have even confused scientists, with some saying that they don't match up with wildlife known to science and that some of them even show things like dermal ridges. Interestingly, when people have gone on to conduct analysis on these images, some have discovered that some of the traits don't match up to that of a human. There's some Bigfoot researchers that have said that if you look at the facial features of a Bigfoot and compare them to a human's, the Bigfoot has a much more defined brow ridge, and that the noses had a higher position in the face than that of a human. In fact, when you look at the facial structures of these creatures, they appear to have more in common to that of a chimp than that of a human. And this has caused some researchers to say that they're an entirely new species unknown to science. Others have said, though, that this argument doesn't hold up and this could be faked by someone wearing a mask. Although some Bigfoot researchers have countered this and said that a genuine Bigfoot's facial structure is much different to that of a mask and that you can't tell the two apart when they're lined up side by side. As of right now, there's still many that believe that Bigfoot is genuine and that it's only a matter of time before we get evidence that will finally prove that it's real. If you're someone who doesn't want to work a corporate job and doesn't like the idea of working 9 to 5, then becoming an archaeologist might be your calling. Archaeologists are responsible for some of history's most incredible finds. Every so often, though, they come across some strange artifacts. One of those is that of the Paracas skull, which are best known for their elongated look. One photograph is making the rounds showing what looks like a piece of metal which has been embedded inside the skull. It quickly got shared by people who said it then looked like a large microchip, or it could be some type of ancient technology that was used by our ancestors. Although many labeled the photograph as fake, saying that it was likely photoshopped in order to get it like this, the image is actually real and was first posted by the Museum of Osteology. The Museum of Osteology made the post on social media, and since putting it up, it's gone viral. They said the following in the post: "Not on public display. A proven elongated skull with metal surgically implanted after returning from battle. Estimated to be from around 2,000 years ago. one of our more interesting and oldie pieces in the collection. We don't have a ton of background on this piece, but we do know he survived the procedure. Based on the broken bone structure surrounding the repair, you can see that it's tightly fused together. It was a successful surgery." End quote. Many commented on the post saying how incredible this artifact is, but were equally confused as to how such a procedure would be carried out. One person said the following: "Has that been tested? How did they manage to get this inside someone during a time like this? It looks very well done." End quote. Well, another person said the following: "This metal inlay is incredible. It really shows us how little we know about our ancient history. Who would have thought that something like this was possible? It's incredible to think the person survived this. I'm not sure though I'd like to have a piece of metal fused to my skull without an aesthetic. It makes you wonder what other discoveries are out there waiting to be found." End quote. This isn't the only interesting find in regards to these skulls. Researchers who work closely with the Praco skulls have said they've made some new discoveries. These skulls were first discovered in the Pracos region of Peru, a desert on the south coast of the country. Julio Tello, a proven archaeologist, was the first to discover these astonishing skulls in 1928. What initially stood out as the most unusual among the skulls was that they were the longest and most protracted skulls to have ever been found before. Over 300 were found, dating back between 2,000 and 300 years old. It wasn't until 2014 when DNA testing revealed unusual findings. It showed that they have mitochondrial DNA with strange mutations that have not been seen in animals or humans before. The elongated skulls were just the tip of the iceberg. While skulls may become elongated due to deformities or applying force on the skull for a long period of time, this was certainly not the case with the Paraca skulls. A researcher by the name of L.A. Marsali took note of more than a few characteristics that don't fit the norm for a standard human skull. The eye sockets were found to be much larger. The cheekbones were much more pronounced than the skull's weight, 60% more than that of a normal human skull. He also looked to a specific point of the skull known as the frame and magnum. On a human skull, it's situated closer to the jawline, whereas it was closer to the back of the skull on the Paragas ones. After studying over 1,000 skulls, archaeologists also noticed that the frame and magma was smaller, leading them to theorize that it's a genetic trait. This caused them to further research the Paracas skulls, investigating every part in great detail. Experts eventually noticed that they were missing a sagittal suture, which is found on all human skulls and is a piece of tissue that connects the two parietal bones in the skull. Although not all Pracar skulls were devoid of a sagittal suture, most didn't appear to have one at all. This brought upon more confusion and intrigue to those involved in the research. As research continued, 3 skulls were used to sample DNA, one of which was an infant dating back 800 to 2,000 years ago, whilst wearing protective clothing to ensure the samples wouldn't be contaminated. The samples were sent to 3 different labs in Canada and the United States, and the geneticists weren't given many details to reduce the risk of creating preconceived notions about the skulls. The DNA results were nothing short of fascinating. They came back explaining that one of the samples found that the hair samples wasn't a sequence found in human DNA. However, the other samples were showing that they came mostly from Eastern Europe and some from Western Europe. When looking at the bone powder, they found that it originated from Mesopotamia, otherwise known as Syria. Many questions still remain. People are torn over the 2014 DNA analysis of the recovered skulls. That showed that gathered DNA from the remains contained mutations that did not match any non-human or primate DNA samples previously recorded. Although the DNA testing was immediately put into question by the scientific community, the lead researcher stands by the results and asks for those within the scientific community to confirm his findings and take their own test to show the validity of his claims. It may still take many years before experts are able to provide an adequate explanation for the unusual findings, with some saying that the practice goals will remain a mystery, so we'll have to draw our own conclusions for now. Who knows, maybe this discovery will bring about more news and provide us with the insight needed to better understand the human race and our untraceable history. Nikola Tesla has been hailed as one of the greatest inventors to have ever lived. Though Tesla would go on to make headlines across many different news outlets for a number of breakthroughs and inventions, there were also a number of articles posted about him during his life that spoke of a far more peculiar side of him. At the time, his unique mind wasn't appreciated, and in some cases people even tried to brand him as a mystic and someone who didn't know what he was talking about. However, these comments didn't stop him, and Nikola Tesla wasn't one to shy away from electricity and being able to harness it. One of his famous quotes was the following: "I've worked out a dynamic theory of gravity in all details and hope to give this to the world very soon." Nikola Tesla has impacted your life in one way or another. For example, electricity, radar, and microwave is the radio. Drones and many other things all came from the great month that was Nikola Tesla. Recently, the FBI has released 64 pages of unreleased documents, and these include things like paper and documents that were collected shortly after Tesla passed away. For many years now, theories have been floating around as to why Tesla's work was collected by the government. Some have said that Tesla's work wasn't important and wouldn't have had an impact on us, and that the ideas and inventions he was working on didn't work or were just made up. So, if this was the case, why did the United States government quickly swoop in and collect his work shortly after he'd passed away? Tesla's work obviously caught the attention of the FBI as they wanted to come through what he'd been working on. One of the reasons for doing this was to ensure that any of his work didn't get into the wrong hands. For this reason, they decided it would be best if the documents remained in the property of the Office of Alien Property Custodian. This was, however, until the documents and other pieces of Tesla's work mysteriously disappeared after the war. Interestingly, enough discussion had been created that the public was aware of some of these alleged inventions, and it even caused citizens to question Director J. Edgar Hoover about what Tesla had been working on. It's some of these extracts, though, that have caused many people to question why the government would look into this. And not only that, but also keep it a secret. These are some experts from the official FBI documents that got released. This letter will not reach you in time to sight flying saucers over New York on the night of June 13th from 10 p.m. to 1 a.m. But there will again be full-scale operations of flying saucers over all American areas on July 1st. This will be in 3 phases as follows. New York airs July 1st, 9 a.m. Washington, D.C. airs 9:25 a.m. General North American airs 9:25 a.m. Central American airs 9:30 a.m. South American airs 9:35 a.m. Second phase is same errors as above, beginning at 12 midday July 1st. Third phase full-scale operations over all American areas beginning at 7 p.m. on the evening of July 1st. The above information has been supplied by George King, editor of Cosmic Voice 88, The Drive Mansions, Fulham Road in London. Also, please note that George King has also published back issues of Cosmic Voice in 1 volume. This is beyond doubt the finest. George King is considered the best telepathic contact that the space people have. Although George Fantasso is the funnest we have in America, Margaret Storm has been assigned to certain work with the space people. As follows, she is writing a book, a story of the life of Nikola Tesla and the part his inventions will play in the new age. Much of the data for this book has been supplied to Mrs. Storm through transcripts received on the Tesla set, a radio-type machine invented by Tesla in 1938 for interplanetary communication. And his engineers did not build the Tesla set until after his death. It was placed in operation in 1950, and since the time the Tesla engineers had been in close touch with spaceships. The space people have visited the Tesla engineers many times and have told us that Tesla was a Venetian, brought this planet as a baby in 1856, and left with Mr. and Mrs. Tesla in a remote mountain province in what is now Yugoslavia. Mr. Einspan L. 1136th Avenue, New York City, in a telephone conversation with the writer during the late evening of January 8, 1943, stated that Nikola Tesla, who's one of the world's outstanding scientists, particularly in the electrical field, and who'd passed away on January 7, 1943, at the Hotel New Yorker Wade maintained his residence. During his lifetime had conducted many experiments in connection with the wireless transmission of electrical power, what is now commonly called the death ray. Mr. Spanel further stated that the notes and records of Tesla's experiments from Fermali, together with designs of the machinery necessary to vitalize them, are among Tesla's personal effects, and that no steps have been taken to preserve them or keep them from falling into the hands of people unfriendly to the war efforts and allied nations. Spanel continued by saying that a distant relative of Tesla, a person who was intensely disliked by Tesla and who came to the United States from Czechoslovakia within the past year by the name of Sava Kosvanovic, is taking steps to get possessions of these important documents and plans. Mr. Spanel believes there's a strong likelihood of Sava making this material available to the enemy in the event he is successful. Spanel advised that he's in some kind of governmental work connection with the war effort, which caused him to spend about 5 days each week in the nation's capital. And because of the connections he has made in this capacity, he has seen fit to telephonically notify G2 headquarters in Washington, D.C., as well as Mr. Borkin of the Department of Justice in Washington. Spanel stated that Mr. Borkin advised him that he would immediately make the information available to the director of the FBI, and advised Spanel to lose no time in taking steps to see that Tesla's personal possessions were not disturbed. A few minutes after this conversation, Mr. Spanel had been in communication with Dr. D. Lozado, one of the advisors to Vice President Wallace. After talking with Lozado, he called back to Spanel and told him that the government was virtually interested in the effects of Tesla, particularly those dealing with the wireless transmission of electrical energy in the death ray, and for Spanel to lose no time in doing all he could to preserve them. On any given day, there can be up to 5,000 planes in the sky. Watchtower employees and those who plane watch have caught some interesting things on camera. Although some of these include tense moments, some have baffled even those that spend a large part of their life in and around airports. One clip shows someone videoing a plane taking off. In the background, though, they accidentally capture something that's baffled many who have seen it. When the footage is slowed down, it shows what looks like a mysterious craft, and this craft can be seen flying through the nearby clouds as it punches a hole through them, causing the cloud to be pushed outwards. Those who saw it said the object must have been traveling extremely fast, saying that normally passenger planes usually take off at speeds of between 140 and 170 miles per hour, and this thing was clearly going much faster. One user said the following about the footage: "This is genuinely one of the fastest moving objects I've seen. It's gone within seconds. That plane is nowhere near as fast as that object." End quote. While another user said the following: "I find it hard to believe that it is a plane or a jet. One, because the object is moving too fast. And secondly, because I don't think a high-tech plane would be flying so close to a plane that has passengers on it. It's a safety risk. This definitely isn't a drone either. This is a strange one." End quote. The footage was said to have been captured above Orlando Airport some time back in 2011, and some who live within the area commented that seeing UFOs above Florida isn't anything new. In fact, one commercial airline pilot detailed their encounter with a mysterious craft they couldn't identify. They said that whatever this thing was easily overtook them, saying that it was traveling at speeds exceeding 4,000 miles per hour. He said that he watched as this thing covered the curvature of the Earth within a few seconds. The pilot said he'd never seen anything so quick in his life. As with most of these posts, they also had a few skeptics, with some of them pointing out that the footage is fake and has most likely been edited. Others, though, don't believe this and even posted their personal stories with UFOs about Florida, with some eyewitnesses saying that they think Florida is somewhat of a hotspot. In fact, this is backed up by MUFON, who reported that back in 2020, Florida and California reported the most UFO sightings. As of right now, this mysterious video is still being shared online. One of the most famous incidents involving that of a UFO and a plane was that of the 1976 Tehran UFO incident. This UFO incident is based on a chase that was carried out by two planes that belonged to the Iranian army. During this chase, the pilots of the Iranian army tried to shoot down at mysterious objects using their weapons, but this proved useless. Oddly enough, every time they tried to do this, their equipment stopped working. This also happened when they approached the object. In 1976, the Imperial Air Force was informed of different reports and sightings of the strange objects. This was alarming to all those who witnessed it, since it was a never-before-seen object. This strange craft was also seen firing out multiple lines, something that eyewitnesses couldn't explain. After hundreds of calls from civilians, it was decided that an F-4 Phantom should be sent out for the purpose of investigating what was going on. This aircraft took off with the sole purpose of intercepting the unidentified flying object. Since the pilots managed to locate the object, they had orders to attack it. But strangely, when coming into contact with the object, the Iranian craft began to present some failures. And this stopped the military from being able to communicate with each other. The pilots decided to return to the base, noticing that when they got away from the objects, they got back all the normal functions of the aircraft. As expected, a second Iranian jet took off to identify the unknown object. Unlike the first encounter, the mysterious object began to make its way towards the plane, almost as if inspecting it. The pilots said that the craft in question was very bright and that as it got closer, the brightness of the objects stopped them from being able to see the craft. Not only did it come close, but it was reported that it released a drone-like object. This observed the jet and then returned back to the original object. The pilots felt like they were going to be attacked, so decided to fight back. They noticed again that the weapons panel was completely inactive, which was alarming when they were in the sky with something they'd never seen before. However, they received no attacks, and it seemed as if this craft was just interested in the jet. One of the small objects descended into the desert, and the Iranian plane was ordered to proceed. The next state of search was conducted for evidence of the sighting, and whatever was found remains a secret. This has been recognized as one of the most reliable encounters with an unidentified flying object due to the number of witnesses who were able to observe what happened. The main witnesses were different pilots of the Iranian military. Stories about the paranormal interests of many of us. For thousands of years, humans have talked about mysterious topics and that humans may share this planet with something not quite human. Paranormal is a heavily debated topic, but if recent announcements have told us anything, it's that even our best scientists and officials have shown interest in this topic and sometimes have not been able to give an explanation for certain events. Although there's a wide variety of places that can be haunted, some of the most common ones are said to be that of cemeteries, old buildings, or locations where something dark has happened. One location that's at the center of a variety of stories is that of Oakland Cemetery. There's one particular reason why people tend to travel to this cemetery, and that's to see the large 8.5-foot tall Black Angel statue. Various stories have been shared about this location and the Black Angel, with some saying that it wasn't always black, and that although people have come in and scrubbed the angel, it will always return to its black color. Locals and researchers who know the area well reported that as soon as the statue arrived, strange things started to happen and the overall feel of the location changed for the worse. The story goes that Teresa Duzzle had the statue created for her loved ones, but when she passed away, this statue took on a different feel, with some amateur researchers saying that this is why the statue turned black and that during her life she was a mysterious woman, with one tale going on to say that the Black Angel stands to protect her and that anyone seen disrespecting her will be marked. One claim states that the black color originally started with the eyes, with some people noticing that they turned jet black overnight. After this, the rest of the body quickly turned black. After the angel turned black, it wasn't long before people started to notice that strange things started to happen. One story details that any girl who is kissed within the angel's shadow will pass away within 6 months. This theme has continued, with one tale stating that anyone kissing the angel will pass away that same day and that anyone who touches the angel will be marked and will live the rest of their life unhappy. Another claim is that only a girl who is pure of heart can kiss the statue and survive. There's been stories of people touching the angel as a dare, only for that individual to disappear, never to be seen or heard from again. In 2013, the TV show Haunted Highway went to the cemetery to do an episode on the Black Angel. While here they detected various anomalies that they weren't able to explain. One of them was that of a mysterious voice and also apparitions that could be seen around them. Next, they turned on their thermal cameras, only to discover that the Black Angel appeared to be glowing hot, something that they couldn't explain, as when they detected this it was nighttime and cold. The Black Angel is said to be accompanied by a mysterious shadow figure, with investigators saying that on some occasions it's not uncommon to see the shadow figure close to the statue. Some who've investigated the statue and the history around it have said it may be one of the family members, that they're protecting the area close to the angel, while others have suggested that the black shadow is a manifestation of the angel itself, and it does this so it can roam the cemetery freely. One person said the following about their visit to the cemetery. Me and my partner visited the Black Angel a few years back, and we certainly experienced our fair share of mysterious happenings. In one of the photographs I took of the angel, you can see in the background what looks like a dark figure. It wasn't actually me who saw it, but rather my partner once they were flicking through the images later that night. On top of this, the day after our visit, I woke up with a burning sensation on my back. When I asked my partner to take a look at it, he said there were 3 large scratches on my back. We don't have any pets, and I can't explain how the cuts randomly appeared. The only thing we did prior to this was visit the Black Angel. I know that the paranormal isn't for everyone, but for me, I believe that the scratches and the visitor linked. Others have gone on to tell similar stories, saying that when they got close to the angel, they suddenly felt a deep pressure in their chest, got an instant headache, and would even be hit with a sudden spell of nausea. As of today, people continue to visit and research the mysterious Black Angel. Howard Street Cemetery is located in Salem, Massachusetts. Howard Street forms a T-junction with Brown Street, where the Salem Witch Museum is situated, so in terms of setting, this cemetery is already a spooky one. Set amongst period Gothic Salem architecture, this cemetery lies ominously on an open, flat piece of land that is extremely atmospheric. Many of the graves in the Halder Cemetery dates back to the early 18th century. Amongst them are revolutionary heroes and sailors, but no witches lie in the ground of the cemetery, or at least this has never been verified. The site is said to have been the location of the execution of Giles Corey, a Salem farmer who famously refused to plead neither guilty nor not guilty when charged with being a witch in 1692. Corey was left for days under the crushing weight of the rocks piled on his back and eventually passed away. His remains are buried in the soil of what is now Howard Street Cemetery. Throughout the 1500s and 1600s, witch crazes and witch hunts were occurring all across the world, but although we know today that those accused of witchcraft are most definitely not witches, Giles Corey's story goes slightly against the norm. He allegedly placed a curse on the sheriff of Salem, and a few years later the sheriff suddenly passed away of a heart attack, although that could have been just a coincidence. However, strangely enough, over the years a number of Salem's sheriffs have been forced into retirement and all suffered similar health issues, often to do with the heart. It's widely noted that doctors haven't been able to work out why the sheriffs have suffered these specific problems, almost as if they are the work of the supernatural. The megalodon shark is one of the most interesting prehistoric creatures, mainly because we know so little about it. Although scientists know that it would have had one of the strongest bite forces of any animal, would feast on ancient whales, sea lions, turtles, and other large mammals, and would dominate the areas it swam in, things like their true size. How they lived and what caused their demise is greatly debated. For example, over the past year, researchers have announced that Megalodon was smaller than they thought, only to take that statement back and announce that they think the Megalodon is actually bigger than their previous estimates. The general idea is that this giant shark could grow between 50 and 60 feet long, although some have suggested that the shark could grow even bigger. One of the problems that many scientists face is the same as many dinosaurs, and that's that we don't have much material to go by to give an accurate description. Megalodon's skeleton was made mostly of cartilage, but teeth and vertebrae of this giant shark had been found. Although teeth are much easier to identify than vertebrae, as many of these have been misidentified. Megalodon teeth could reach over 7 inches in length, much bigger than that of the modern great white shark. For years now, there's been stories of fishermen and people who spend large amounts of time on the sea encountering their shark, with them saying that the creature can easily be recognized due to its size. Scientists and marine biologists, though, have said that the megalodon shark is long extinct and that we've never found proof of a living megalodon in the modern day, suggesting that one of the reasons why people think they might be seeing a megalodon is due to misidentification. Distortion in the water that makes it look like something is bigger than it is, and also tales that have been passed down generations. Many cryptid researchers have said that there's been sightings of these giant sharks, and that because sharks have gills and they don't need to come to the surface to breathe, spotting them is much harder. One recent sighting was reported by someone who's looking through Google Earth, with them noting that it looked like a sea monster was disturbing the water. To people's surprise, the photograph was taken around England, a place that's known for having very few shark species. Regardless, the individual felt that Google satellites had captured something interesting and so decided to share it and get other people's opinion. Mr. Hobbin discovered the alleged creature while looking at an area of the dock's large bones, saying that whatever this thing is, it's clearly bigger than some of those bones. It's been given the name of the Maricide Jaws, and some people who saw the image said this isn't the first time that a giant shark has been spotted in the area. Many people went on to label it as an ancient megalodon, but not everyone got on board with the idea of there being a giant shark swimming around England, with some saying that the most likely answer is that someone's on a jet ski or someone's taken up their boat and left a large wake behind. Interestingly, Tom Cromwell, a marine biologist, said that he thinks the image is actually genuine and that the creature in question is large, but noted that it's been misidentified and that the most likely answer here is that it's a basking shark, which holds the record as being the second largest fish in the ocean, with the first being the whale shark. He said the following: water creatures had been known to cruise the wrong way up rivers and canals and become stranded, as with the whales that got stranded up the Thames several years back. Perhaps it was an old shark that was looking for a place to pass away. Although this is the most accepted idea, cryptid researchers have said that we can't ignore the fact that the majority of our oceans remain unexplored and that there could be giant sharks lurking under our ocean that science is not aware of. With some noting that scientists said the coelacanth was swimming around in our oceans hundreds of millions of years ago, and scientists said they became extinct around 18 million years ago. But in 1938, a living coelacanth was discovered in the Indian Ocean near the southern coast of Africa. Incredibly, these creatures have been living since the time of the dinosaurs. With this much evidence gathered by scientists, it's no surprise then that it appears that there's large tales involving the existence of real-life encounters with ancient creatures. It's creatures like the coelacanth that have led some to believe that there's a small possibility that the megalodon could still be out there. There's some who've gone on to question the true size of a great white shark, saying that modern-day researchers will give a maximum length of 18 to 20 feet, but fishermen around Africa and Australia have said they've seen much bigger specimens, and estimate these reaching almost 30 to 35 feet. In fact, the Guinness Book of World Records listed a great white shark caught in the 1870s near Port Fairy in southern Australia waters as one of the largest. This great white shark was said to be measured 10.9 meters, much larger than any other specimen that's been discovered. For many years, scientists have questioned the true size of this shark. No proper scientific process was used in validating the true size. The oceans are still very much a mystery. Every year, underwater researchers are making incredible discoveries, showing us that there's still a lot to learn about our oceans. The pyramids of Egypt have long evoked out their theories. The ancient pyramids are easily some of the most impressive structures that we've created, and since their discovery, scientists and researchers have tried to better understand how they were constructed and how the ancient Egyptians built them in such a short amount of time. Recently, KGB files were released that revealed that a god had visited the ancient Egyptians. For those unaware, the KGB was the main security agency for the Soviet Union, and this was from March 1954 until December 1991. Dr. Viktor Ivanovich, who was serving as the science advisor for the Advanced Propulsion System, revealed that he had access to secret files about a mission called Project ISIS. He said that during this project, the KGB had insiders who worked for the Egyptian government, and that during phone calls that discussed the Great Pyramids, they had the conversations taped so they could listen in. In 1960, Dr. Ivanovich came forward and said that Sami Sarif, who was the Egyptian Minister of Presidential Affairs, captured a conversation that none of them expected. The Egyptian tape recording was played during Amazon Prime's secret KGB files and revealed that it was captured on the 24th of July, 1960. Dr. Ivanovich said the following about the discovery. One of the top officials phoned his brother, revealing that two archaeologists had stumbled upon a hidden tomb. They had apparently remained delirious for a few days, and finally went to the hospital. When they got there, they repeated only 3 words: "Tomb of Visitor." This is a reference to the grave of an Egyptian god who does not exist in the Egyptian pantheon. He has a special sign as a visiting god. Dr. Ivanovich went on to explain that long before the time of the ancient Egyptians and pharaohs, there was a god that came down from the skies with others of their kind, and they had passed on their knowledge and wisdom to the people of earth before leaving. Dr. Ivanovich, who was also an astrophysicist and neurologist, said that one of these godlike beings actually passed away on our planet, revealing that a top-secret tomb within the Great Pyramid was actually constructed for the god, and that top Egyptian officials revealed this during the phone call. Since then, various researchers have tried to track down what happened to the secret tomb, but it's reported that Egyptian and other officials have taken the being out of the pyramid and have placed it in a secret location. Since then, various people have speculated that the ancient Egyptians had helped building these incredible structures. Looking at the structure from a purely mathematical standpoint, the Great Pyramids of Giza consists of roughly 2.3 million stone blocks, with each ranging from 2.5 to 15 tons. According to supposed Egyptian documents discovered in nearby tombs and areas regarding the pyramids, the pharaoh recorded that only 20,000 workers built the pyramids over the course of 20 years. If that turns out to be the case according to these ancient Egyptian records, then that would mean to meet this requirement, each worker would need to cut a block with perfect precision from a quarry, move this block to the pyramid alone, a task already impossible for a single man to do, and then pull the block up the pyramid into its position without any help once every 30 days. This would mean that each block would have to be placed once every 2.5 minutes in perfect unison. with each of the 20,000 workers performing without a break. In 2017, scientists studying the pyramid announced they had found a previously unknown void inside the pyramid, and it's estimated to be around 30 meters long. The last time any kind of big structure inside the pyramid was discovered was in the 1800s. This new void was found using a process called muon radiography. This method utilizes cosmic rays to locate voids or cavities inside of structures. This new discovery is being compared to the previously discovered Grand Gallery of the pyramid. The Grand Gallery is a 150-foot-long corridor that goes directly to the barrel room of Corfu. This corridor is also around 26 feet tall and sits below the newly discovered area. Still, it's completely unknown what or if anything lies within this area and what it was used for. It could be several smaller rooms or one large area. At the moment, scientists have said they don't know. This discovery is still huge. It brings us closer to finally being able to understand and even just know the various intricacies of this incredible structure. This discovery was made by the Scan Pyramids project working with the Egyptian Ministry of Antiquities and is widely regarded as the most impressive achievement of this technology used to find it, and that's Morn topography. Devoid of its original coating of white limestone blocks, the Great Pyramid also lacks its summit, which gave it approximately another 9 meters in height. Many people believe that the capstone of the Great Pyramid of Giza was made of gold and it was somehow removed from the top of the pyramid in the distant past. But some have struggled to imagine someone removing a capstone made entirely out of gold. Interestingly, one theory proposed by Spanish researcher Miguel Pérez Sánchez indicates that the Great Pyramid wasn't left unfinished and that a massive sphere was located on its surface. Pérez Sánchez proposes that the sphere of the ancient pyramids placed at the top of the pyramid symbolized the Eye of Horus and had a diameter of 2,718 royal cubits or 2.7 meters. The sphere located on the pyramid was placed as a worship to the sun and Sirius, the brightest star in the sky. In addition of the sphere located on top of the pyramid, analysis enabled researchers to find the inclination angle of 5,184 degrees, the platform that supported the sphere with a pi perimeter of royal cubits, and the height of the pyramidal vertex of 277,778 cubits. According to Pérez Sánchez, the discovery of the original shape and dimensions of the Great Pyramid, its reconstruction and analysis revealed an architecture made of pure mathematics, geometry, and astronomy. Tom DeLonge is on a mission to prove the existence of mysterious flying crafts. This topic has been featured heavily in the news recently, with people like Elon Musk giving their opinions on the subject. One thing that's come to light is that officials are heavily investigating this topic, having various different videos showing these mysterious objects defying the laws of aviation, with even former presidents coming forward and saying that some of these sightings and encounters can't be explained. Interestingly, a few months back, Tom posted an interesting photograph and caption on his Instagram, but it soon got removed not long after being up. The photograph and message were saved by online users, but some couldn't understand why the post had been taken down, while others said that Tom may have been forced to take the post down. It said the following: in the early 50s, a man was claiming to have regular visits from spacemen that were the same entities that UFO contactees described meeting, as well as the same ones he said were portrayed in the Bible as angels. He said they put outposts in the solar system and had connections to Atlantis and the Maria. He took many photos in the early 50s, no Photoshop or computers, but many were overexposed potentially because of the propulsion field coming from the craft. A man in 2017 wanted to make a 3D animation of the craft and asked to borrow all of the photos and negatives from the 50s to help create the animation. Upon digital enhancement, within a black negative, this figure and craft appeared. This may be what the people describe as the tall whites or the Atlanteans or the angels of the Bible. They glow, they can almost look translucent, and it's as if they're surrounded by an electromagnetic force field. But really they may be walking around on Earth just like men as the Bible texts describe. The post immediately created a discussion online, with some users saying that the photographs don't show anything of interest and that it's likely nothing, while others came forward instead that they've encountered similar-looking beings. According to local legends and stories, Shasta Mountain is very spiritual and is said to be placed on top of the lost continent of Lemuria. Since the early 1880s, locals close to the region have reported seeing mysterious flying crafts close to the mountain, along with strange people who would walk up to the mountain and then vanish. Others said that these individuals actually live inside the mountain and that inside is a lost, advanced society. Amateur researchers who've looked into the topic of UFOs have said these crafts are particularly interested in volcanoes and that every year photographs are taken of them entering these systems. The story of Lemuria is a long one, but according to those that have looked into its history, the Lemurians are said to be an ancient advanced society who eventually relocated underground, and since then this is where they've stayed. As mentioned earlier, most who have looked into this have said that they currently reside underneath or inside Mount Shasta. The Lemurians are thought to be peaceful, kind, hyper-intelligent, and more forgiving. All beings that lived in Lemuria worked together in harmony, were all equal, and all respected Mother Earth. Many ancient writings throughout the world talk about a great flood that took out many different civilizations, and people who have looked into advanced civilizations have said that either they were taken out as well or they were forced to live underground, and have since stayed there. Others have suggested that the Lemurians actually disguised themselves, started living alongside other humans, saying that most agreed that their general appearance is that of a tall human with blonde hair and blue eyes. Doing a reverse search on the image that Tom posted doesn't bring up anything, causing some to say that this photograph could be the real deal. The overall appearance and characteristics of this alleged species remind some of the tall whites or the Nordics. According to MUFON, the second most commonly reported alien is nearly completely identical to human beings, and this is in almost every other way except for a few key differences. Referred to by MUFON as the Nordic alien species, the Nordic aliens are reportedly aliens that have long blonde hair, so blonde that it's commonly mistaken as being white, pale skin, deep blue eyes, and typically male, stand between 6 and 7 feet tall. Many who have claimed to have encountered the Nordic aliens or have been abducted by the species claims that the Nordic aliens possess advanced telepathic abilities, able to communicate entire concepts and emotions with the abductees, and instill them with a tremendous amount of new information. Although many claim that the species is kind in nature, with some saying that the Nordic aliens are preparing to save the human race via abduction in the event of a world-ending catastrophe. There appears to be a number of apocalyptic and doomsday cults that worship the Nordic aliens in sinister ways. However, those that have been taken by these entities have said the feeling of being in their presence was something that they'll never forget. Scientists and researchers, though, don't buy into this idea, saying that these are just stories, and those saying that they've been taken into ships are most likely dreaming, reporting that sleep paralysis can make you think that things are happening around you when they aren't. Scientists have also said that they've never found an advanced civilization living beneath Mount Shasta. Researchers have said that the government could be gearing up to tell us something, noting that things like Space Force could have been created in order to communicate with advanced species outside of our solar system. Former employees who worked for the government have also detailed that they're hiding information from the general public and that they have decades-old documents that aren't being shared, saying that they show proof of mysterious flying crafts that are much more advanced than what we have. Believers, though, have said that people who don't believe in UFOs are close-minded, and regardless of what they might think, we have evidence of advanced crafts flying into mountains and volcanoes. Despite the countless skeptics and claims against the alien awareness movement, a massive amount of witness accounts and substantial scientific evidence has come forward over the years surrounding the existence of extraterrestrial life and the proof surrounding their visitations of our planet. Terrell Copeland's story is one that's fascinated many. The former U.S. Marine is from Virginia and details he's had several UFO encounters, going on to say that one of these crafts even abducted him. The U.S. Marine's story is often brought up because believers say it's hard to dismiss. In 2009, he and 1,500 people held a secret meeting in a small New England town. The meeting was attended by those who were interested to learn about UFOs and aliens. In the meeting, Copeland opened up and revealed that back in 2005, he witnessed a mysterious triangular craft in the sky, saying that it was hovering above a shopping center. It's important to note that the triangular-shaped craft is somewhat of a mystery. There's some believers that think that this craft belongs to our military, while others say that due to how fast it can fly and due to how long it's been seen on our planet, it doesn't belong to us. The second encounter happened 2 years later in 2007, in which he said he was able to capture this one from his apartment building. He said the following: after this, he published the video online and was interested to see what people thought of it. Not long after posting the video, he reported that he had a knock at the door. When he opened it, he said there was a mysterious man standing there. And when he asked who he was, the man replied that he was a military contractor and wanted to talk to him about his recent sighting. One of the questions the man asked was the following: "Do you believe the US government is in contact with otherworldly beings?" End quote. However, this was only the beginning, as after these encounters he would go on to experience lost time, sleep paralysis, and even abductions. He details that back in 2006 he was abducted by a large craft, and when he came around he could see there was a woman in front of him who didn't quite look human, noting that she had human features, but that she also had large black eyes and an elongated skull. This experience didn't seem to affect him too much, and he even had an open mind about the whole encounter, saying the following: "I just want to be a better person, because if I feel someone from above took notice of me, then maybe I'm doing something right. And maybe if I'm doing something right, maybe I can do better." End quote. Some UFO believers took this further and suggested that he may be part alien and that the woman he saw could have been related to him in some way. He responded with the following: "That's heavy. It's not surprising to me though. After all that's happened these last couple of years. It could be true." End quote. Many are interested in the mysterious individual that knocked on his door, and go on to say it's likely he was visited by the mysterious men in black. Researchers have said it's more than obvious at this point that not only is there a secret agency working around the clock to suppress any information regarding extraterrestrial life, but this secret agency also works to intimidate, threaten, discredit, or even attack people in the alien community who happen to stumble upon damning evidence or have spent their lives trying to expose the truth. This secret agency, be it an agency that works with the government or above them, has come to be known around the world as the hidden men in black that will stop at no means to prevent the truth from leaking out into the public mind. Many skeptics will claim that supposed figures are nothing more than the paranoid manifestations of theories who try to validate their work. But the people who are truly in the know are well aware of the vast amount of evidence of such encounters with the men in black. Alien abductions interest many of us. There's a handful of interesting cases that have come to light in recent years. And although scientists and researchers have tried to explain them away as things like sleep paralysis, others have said this phenomenon should be taken more seriously. Another interesting case is that of Judy Doherty, an often recurring theme of extraterrestrial abduction stories, is that many alien abductees are unaware of being victims of an abduction until hypnosis allows them to unlock repressed memories seemingly locked away from their conscious minds. This also appears to be the case with the witness account of Judy Doherty. According to Judy's case, back in 1973, four witnesses were traveling home to Texas City when they encountered a strange light that was described as hovering in the night sky. The four witnesses, Judy, her daughter Cindy, Judy's mother, and Judy's sister-in-law, all got out of the car to get a better look at the craft. Suddenly, a period of time passed and the light moved away and disappeared into the distance. Following the event, Judy began complaining of severe migraine headaches, generalized anxiety, and trouble sleeping following the encounter. After visiting a handful of doctors, all of whom believed that the symptoms were most likely physical manifestations of stress, Julie visited with Dr. Leo Sprinkle, a well-known ufologist and trained hypnotist, to help alleviate her stress. Once under hypnosis, Julie began to uncover repressed memories of an alien abduction that took place during the sighting that the four witnesses made only several weeks prior. According to Judy, and later cooperated by her daughter, after ongoing hypnosis therapy, the four women were taken aboard the craft and witnessed two small alien entities cut apart a cow and watch them remove its organs. After this, the daughter was then placed on an operating table as the aliens began taking a variety of samples from her. However, Judy nor the daughter go into details by what they mean by this. Once the hypnosis therapy was finished, Judy's symptoms cleared up almost immediately. Strange discoveries are made all the time by everyday people. Some of these are found in old houses, barns, and construction sites, and sometimes they can leave those who found them with more questions than answers. This is exactly what happened to one heating, ventilation, and air conditioning engineer who was checking out an old property. One man's wife posted this photograph to social media and said that her husband is a heating, ventilation, and air conditioning engineer, and during one of his workdays he was asked to check out an old attic. The owners told him that the property used to be a church and that it had been converted into a house. While in the attic, the man then came across a coffin. When the man questioned what was inside the coffin, they told him not to worry about it and said that it's been there since the place was a church. Oddly enough, the coffin was nailed shut, and the man found it strange how it hadn't been moved from the attic. No more information was provided by the wife, leaving many people who saw the post wanting answers for what was inside. The fact that the building used to be a church didn't go down well with many people, and theories started to be put forward for what was inside. One of the issues is we don't know how old the converted church is. And this could just be an empty coffin with nails in it, but others suggested more sinister ideas and that someone may be inside the coffin and that it was forgotten about and left in the attic undisturbed. Some users said they would call the cops and get them to investigate the area to see if any other strange things could be found, while others carried on from this and said that these coffins may be spread throughout the whole property. However, others went down another route and said that something haunted might be inside and that it's been nailed shut so that it has no chance of getting out. It's not uncommon for mysterious items to be dropped off at churches. In fact, various stories have been told about people leaving behind allegedly haunted items at churches in the hopes of passing the cursed item onto someone else. Some users who saw the image said this is the most likely answer, as it's unlikely that the previous owners of the church would leave this in their attic. As of right now, no more information has been provided about the photograph. Given the fact that no one knows the true nature of how a curse can occur, it's been a tale often fraught with mystery as much as terror. Though the ways an individual can be cursed can vary depending on culture, one thought that's always been the same is the ownership of an object and what that does to its owner. Often referenced throughout history of cursed objects, of whom have brought nothing but horror to its new home. This seems to be a retelling of these same themes to this day in modern tales of cursed objects that still find themselves in the ownerships of families filled with misfortune. Another mysterious find that was made in an attic is this one. The family in question was said to have purchased the doll for their daughter one Christmas. At the time, the doll was loved by the young girl, but as with most toys, the girl stopped playing with it, and so it was placed in the attic. When the daughter was old enough to move out, she asked her parents about the doll and if they still had it, and they said that they remembered placing it in the attic. After this, they all decided that because the daughter is moving out, it would be a good time to clean up the attic to see what else was up there. The girl remembered that when it was put in the attic, it was in good condition and didn't have any marks on it. She, along with the family, were looking forward to seeing the old doll as they thought it would bring back happy memories. However, when taking the doll out of the box, the family made an eerie discovery. The once pretty doll now looked old and wrinkled. In fact, the family members described the doll as looking aged, and that it even looked like it had been mummified, describing the doll's face as being skin-like, and said that it seemed to have wrinkles running across its entire face. Not surprisingly, the family soon got rid of the doll as it began to freak them out. Some who've seen the photographs have put forward the idea of what happened. One online user said that this doll could be haunted and that after being left in the attic, it began to take on a life of its own. Arva suggested that because the doll's left for so long, it began to crack and became discolored. One thing the family couldn't explain is how the dolls seemed to have aged. Arvas who went with the paranormal said that these dolls can be vessels for entities. As of today, the eerie aging doll seems to have vanished. Another mysterious discovery is this one. This eerie-looking doll was discovered laying next to a tree in Singapore. It's reported if you take the blindfold off the doll, you get possessed, causing many of the locals to stay clear of it, with them walking past it and refusing to make eye contact. It's said the owner left it here on purpose after experiencing the paranormal, and after investigations were carried out, it was reported that they covered up the eyes because during the night they allegedly moved. According to locals, the blindfold has the word Bismillah written on it, which is an Arabic phrase meaning "in the name of God." The owner reported that the doll would move on its own and would talk throughout the night. Interestingly, the original story details that the only way to get rid of it and to make sure it doesn't come back is to cover its eyes and ensure that it's passed on to someone else. When this cycle is continued, the curse will pass on to the next person. Since the early 1990s, there have been stories about black-eyed children. These entities are said to have a dark presence, and whenever someone encounters them, they feel uneasy. Those who have come forward and reported their encounters have been left scared and wanting answers. One of the problems, though, is that many eyewitnesses can't prepare for these encounters. What usually happens is one of the entities will knock on the door and take the person on the other side by surprise. The encounter is rushed and the person is usually left terrified by the experience. People that have experienced black-eyed children have said they've never encountered these individuals before, which has led paranormal researchers to say that the encounters seem random and not planned. This story was sent to me a while back and revolves around a woman who had a creepy encounter. The woman said the following: "My boyfriend came over to stay on this particular night and we decided to go for a walk. Where I live is a beautiful place and I generally feel very safe where I am. After eating dinner, we decided to head out for a walk. Everything was fine, but around 40 minutes in we noticed something strange. After being midway through our walk, my boyfriend picked up on the fact that we were being followed by a child. I looked back and I saw the little girl. However, I couldn't really make out what she looked like because it was dark. My boyfriend asked me whether we should go over and see if they're okay, but I thought she may have been with her family. 10 minutes after this encounter, I looked behind us and the little girl was gone, but things only got more strange. A few minutes we came to a dark crossroad and the little girl started towards us. Not only did this scare us, but we wondered how she managed to get in front. We decided to walk towards the little girl, but both of us were nervous. We thought that she may have been lost and thought it would be best to go and ask if she was lost and needed assistance. As soon as we were around 15 feet from this girl, we both looked at each other. This girl's eyes were completely blank, and not only that, but her clothing looked really old. She said in a calm voice, "I need you to come with me." She pointed at me and during the whole encounter blanked my boyfriend. I said no and quickly walked off. While doing so, she just stood there and stared at us. It's the creepiest thing that's ever happened to me and I have no answers for what we encountered that night. End quote. Another guy reported his strange encounter. He said the following: "While going for a jog, I encountered two beings. I don't want to call them children because something wasn't right. I like to think of myself as a brave kind of guy, but this is something that really got to me. In fact, it stayed with me to this day. While jogging, I see these two figures in the distance. It was dark at this point, but it wasn't uncommon to see people as my jogging route is near quite a busy area. Occasionally, you would see people walking their dogs or couples walking hand in hand. However, these people didn't seem like any of those. Where I jog, there are two paths you can take, and I usually take the right path. But on this particular night, these two beings were standing in the middle of the right path. I had to go this way as it then loops me around to where I started. However, as I approached them, something seemed off. The two beings both had their heads down. One was a girl and the other was a boy. I took my headphones out and started to get worried. I thought that perhaps they were lost or needed help. As I approached though, I could see the boy kept looking up and then back down really quickly, almost as if to see how close I was getting. This immediately put me on edge as it came across as weird. I asked them if they needed help and this was when I was taken back. Both of them had dark black eyes. I felt like I was being drawn into them. They asked me if I could give them a ride home. I explained that they could see me running down the path and that I didn't have my car close by. I asked where they were from and they said that's not important. They asked me if I'd let them in my house to use the telephone. At this point, I really started to panic and pretended I had a phone call. I then made a quick getaway. The reason I don't like to call them children is because something was off. These beings talked in a strange way. They sounded too intelligent for their age. They also used old words that don't get used nowadays. You may think it's strange that I ran off, but these beings weren't normal. They did not act scared, but were actually rather intimidating. The way they stared at me with their black eyes just freaked me out. I also got a bad feeling inside when I was around them." End quote. This last story features a man who is alone with his daughter. He claims that he was sleeping in his daughter's bedroom but could hear a knocking sound outside of the house. He thought it may have been one of the neighbor's cats and so tried to fall back asleep. But this odd noise continued. The man looked around his house and could see two figures standing outside the window. He then saw them walk around and knock on the front door. Both were boys aged between 9 and 12 years old. The man also noticed that they gave off a moldy odor. The boys asked the man, "May we use your telegraph?" He quickly realized that something wasn't right, and as they stepped into the light, he noticed that they had jet black eyes. He quickly shut the door and ran up to his daughter's bedroom. The man held his daughter tight as the strange individuals continued to knock on the door throughout the night. The world of mysterious crafts is an interesting one. Some will take you nowhere, and others will lead you down paths that will open your eyes to the strange things that go on in our world. Many of these stories and claims grab the attention of people worldwide, not only because millions are interested, but because some have experienced strange things themselves. Every year it seems that new information comes out about mysterious crafts. Recently, many people who weren't initially interested have been introduced to the strange topic of mysterious flying objects. Someone has just sent me this strange photograph of a flying object which can be seen next to a helicopter, saying that they found it on a Facebook group and that they didn't know what to make of it, saying that if it's genuine, it's one of the clearest UFOs that they've ever seen. The group it was posted to couldn't reveal much about it, and users were discussing whether it was genuine and what it shows. Reverse image searches didn't bring up anything, and everyone seemed to have a slightly different opinion on where the photograph originated from, with some people saying that the photograph was leaked by an insider and was posted to a forum that discusses mysterious flying objects, while others said that it's just been shared between UFO believers. As of right now, some of the major UFO websites haven't shared the image with users who are commenting on the post saying that this is the first time they've seen this photograph. One user had this to say, "This is amazing footage of a high-quality UFO. People are forever saying that we don't have high-quality photographs of UFOs. But now we finally have one. It would be great if we found out more about this photograph, but perhaps more information will be revealed in the coming days." Another user said this, "If this is the real deal, then it's easily one of the clearest photographs of a UFO ever taken. The issue that I have with these super clear images is that something just seems off. I'm not sure if it was created using CGI or some other effect, but something just seems off. This is one of the problems when high-quality UFO photographs are shared online. People immediately think that they're fake because the mountains of UFO evidence we have so far usually show them as being blurry." Another idea people suggested was that this could be from a TV show or a movie and that it might be from one that's not very well known. Regardless of whether these photographs are genuine, it creates an interesting discussion around the topic of mysterious flying objects, their origins, and why so many of them are reported every year. One thing that's obvious is that it's not just everyday people that are interested in these mysterious flying crafts. Various different programs have been funded to study what these crafts are, how they're able to fly at the speeds they do, where they originate from, how the propulsion system is able to make them fly at the speeds they do, how they can enter restricted airspace without being caught, how they can avoid radar detection, and various other things that can't be explained. An initiative that was signed into action in July of 1947 was dedicated to studying reported UFO sightings. The project was converted into Project Grunge in 1949, and then Project Blue Book in March of 1952, which led to the Blue Room Theory. Back in 2007, the Department of Defense began developing a UFO research program tasked with gathering information regarding unidentified flying objects and conducting research as to the observed aircrafts, their origin, and their technological prowess. Another place that was interested in these mysterious objects is that of the Civil Aviation Authority, the responsible for the regulation of aviation safety in the United Kingdom. It turns out, though, that over the years they've received various UFO reports, and what's of interest, though, is that these crafts were particularly large and didn't match typical UFOs. One report said the following: over the years, the Civil Aviation Authority has received more than a few UFO reports, which is hardly surprising. Back on the 12th of June in 1982, large translucent objects 500 feet long were observed at 41,000 feet. Air Traffic Control Center requested subject aircraft to investigate this object, which was found to have the form of a double rectangle, surmounted by a globe egg-shaped crowned by a silver cone. Object observed by all on board. End quote. The Royal Air Force also came forward with some interesting reports. One of interest happened back in the 1950s. Declassified Royal Air Force documents reported that a large number of unidentified flying objects were picked up on radar, with them detailing that every so often they were being detected, and that it was almost as if they wanted to be detected as they would blimp in and out. The Royal Air Force soon discovered that these mysterious objects didn't belong to them or their enemies. The military were observing crafts that were able to travel faster than anything they'd seen before. The objects climbed over 20,000 feet in a matter of seconds. There's no tech that they had or were aware of that was able to pull that off. The documents stated the following: a second radar was switched on and detected the object at the same height and range. Perhaps the most interesting thing about this report was the size of the craft. The military personnel said the crafts were much larger than conventional aircrafts. The military went on to say the following: it was noted by the radar operators that the sizes of the echoes were much larger than would be expected from a normal aircraft. In fact, they considered that the size was nearer to that of a ship's echo. All across the world, these large, unidentified flying objects have been observed. It's even more interesting when declassified documents reveal that they've seen the same thing, and that some of our best pilots and officials can't explain what they are. Although many of these reports can be explained using everyday explanations such as military jets, wildlife, atmospheric conditions, and camera anomalies, some of these can't be so easily explained, leaving those studying them wondering what they are and how they're able to travel at the speeds they do. Rarely does the church go into detail about some of the darker sides of the job, but it's a side that's fascinated Hollywood and everyday people for decades. Whether you believe in the paranormal or not, there's many that have their own stories of running in with things that are not quite human, and some of these priests have revealed the truth behind some of these stories. In every culture around the world, regardless of where they arose or what they believed, claims of demonic possession and terrible hauntings littered all throughout human history. Although such claims of demonic entities might seem to be nothing more than the irrational fear of ancient man, in the modern day there continues to be reports and evidence of exorcisms that persist, some of which have led to individuals losing their lives. Believers will say that these cases are real and that the individuals haunted by an unknown entity, where scientists will tell you that demonic possession is a myth, thus unsupported by any scientific evidence. Interestingly, many who are attached to the church will tell you that the majority of cases they investigate actually turn out to be nothing and are in no way connected to demons. There are some cases, though, that aren't so easy to dismiss. A former CIA agent, Mr. Marrow, recently came forward and told of his story, detailing that Father Martin had passed away after he'd offered to carry out an exorcism on a young girl. Father Martin passed away after a fall, claiming that the entity that was inside the child caused him to fall over. The agent, Mr. Murrow, was close to the case and has revealed some inside information about what happened. When Father Martin arrived at the house of where the possessed individual was being kept, Mr. Morrow revealed that the family was already there trying to make sense of what was going on. As the priest arrived, the possessed individual walked up to the priest and immediately knew who he was, saying, "So you're Malachi Martin and you think you can help her?" This told the priest that the girl was no longer in control of her own body and that whatever was controlling her knew of the father and his intentions. The event took place in 1999, but after this it was reported that the priest was heavily affected by the event, so much so that he was convinced that an invisible force had caused him to fall over, and which led to his passing. The father passed away in July 1999 and was well known throughout the United States. He would turn his back on the church early on, stating that many within the church didn't have their priorities correct and didn't want to help people and were more interested in power than anything else. He believed that people within the church were worshiping dark forces and that groups of powerful individuals had taken over the church and were controlling people. He said the following about his line of work: "I've smelt the breath of Satan and I've heard the demon's voices. Cold, scratchy, dead voices carrying the messages of hatred." Although some skeptics have lived with the father as a fraud and have said that these possessions can be easily explained as things like illnesses, to this day reports are still coming in from people and family members who claim the possession is real. Seen as one of the most defined cases of demonic possession, the story of Clara Jayam in a cell would go on to be used as a metric of whether or not a person was genuinely possessed by a demonic entity, or merely experiencing a severe illness for future exorcism. Clara was a young Christian South African woman born in 1890, of whom was believed to have undergone one of the worst demonic possessions ever documented. At the age of 16, for reasons not entirely explained, Clara was so desperate for any form of control in her life that she made a soul-binding pact with Satan in return for power. This is believed to have been the moments that her demonic possession began. Written in detail by Clara's confessor, Father Horner, and later confirmed by her nun, evidence of Clara's supernatural ability came from her ability to speak any known language, of which she had no previous education, with her able to completely understand Polish, German, French, and Norwegian. Another factor that pointed to supernatural powers was that of Clara's incredibly accurate ability for clairvoyance, with nuns claiming that Clara was capable of speaking people's most intimate of secrets without having any previous contact with the person. It was believed that a demonic possession was taking place, which forced Father Horner to begin a 2-day exorcism. During this exorcism, the true power of Clara's pact with Satan was made clear. It appeared that Clara had superhuman strength, with accounts of her throwing grown men and several nuns across the room and injuring them in her attacks. One nun said the following about the attacks: "No animal had ever made such sounds, neither the lions of East Africa nor the angry bulls. At times it sounded like a herd of wild beasts orchestrated by Satan had formed a hellish choir." During the exorcism, it was recorded that Clara had levitated 5 feet in the air, both vertically and at another time horizontally. During the height of the 2-day exorcism, Clara had attempted to take out the priest in charge of the exorcism by grabbing his stole and choking him with it. At the end of the 2nd day, the demon was forced out of Clara. He was completely healed and no longer demonstrating any symptoms of demonic possession. Because of the overwhelming evidence of the demonic possession, the details of the case would go on to help set the standard for future exorcisms, to help indicate whether an individual is truly possessed or merely suffering from illness. Storms are a common occurrence on our planet. During some of these events, though, they've unearthed some interesting discoveries. One photograph that's currently being shared is this one. It shows a huge ancient road that was allegedly lifted by a storm in the Pacific Ocean. The poster said that many residents living close to Sakhalin Island, a Russian island in the Pacific Ocean, claimed that after the storm the large roadway appeared. Residents reported that they were able to walk out onto it, but said that the event didn't last long and the road sank back into the ocean. The island is known to have harsh storms, and in the past fishermen and locals have even passed away due to how strong they were. Except for a few eyewitness testimonies, not much information can be found out about the event. Online users said that although it sounds unlikely that a man-made road is lying just beneath the waves, it's entirely possible. After all, various ancient civilizations have been lost to the waves, including that of the mysterious pyramids of Yonaguni, also known as the Japanese Atlantis. One of the divers said the following after investigating the area. The larger structure looks like a complicated monolithic step pyramid, rises from a depth of 25 meters or 82 feet. So there's definitely no shortage of these mysterious underwater structures. Some have suggested that this road isn't man-made and was likely just a piece of rock that got dislodged by the storm. Others, though, can't explain how a giant road somehow floated to the surface, even allowing people to walk on it. From the reports, the road was allegedly sturdy enough to allow dozens of people to walk up and down it. Some did note, though, that the area of Sakhalin Island is no stranger to these sorts of mysteries, saying that there's various stories of underwater cities and megaliths, and that in the past even mysterious creatures have allegedly washed up on the shores. All of these stories add to the mystery of the area. As quickly as the road appeared, though, it soon sank into the ocean, leaving those in and around the area to wonder what it was and if it will ever rise again. One of the last unexplored frontiers of our planet is not that of the endless deserts or impassable mountains, but rather that of our oceans. Every year, scientists and researchers discover thousands of new species, new archaeological sites that were lost to the dams, and hidden caves that are home to an entire ecosystem. It's for this reason that the oceans of our planet are some of the most fascinating places to explore. During an investigation back in 2007, as archaeologists were scanning the waters of Lake Michigan in the hopes of locating old recorded shipwrecks, they found a number of strange structures that began to take form on their sonar imaging. At first, the structures appeared to be nothing more than a large number of rocks and boulders and peculiar spots, only to be later revealed to the archaeologists as massive megalithic carved rocks that featured a number of prehistoric markings on their surface. Additionally, the researchers discovered a grouping of these megalithic stones that seemed similar in design to that of Stonehenge, adding further proof that the large rocks had been artificially placed. When divers went down to gather more information, they found the rocks had a large number of strange detailed images that appeared to be carvings of ancient and extinct mastodons. And these were all across the surfaces of the megalithic structures. Unfortunately, further information could not be gathered as the archaeological experts were not able to reach the appropriate depths necessary, and the experts remarked that they do not dive, and said they're not skilled enough to gather appropriate information and reliable data. Due to this and the large size of the megalithic structures preventing the stones from being moved with ease, it appears that not only is it impossible for the researchers to study the strange rocks, but that any further information won't come forward until either a massive funding project is put into the investigation or an archaeological expert becomes a master free diver. It's not just man-made structures that have been discovered. Researchers working in marine biology have begun to see what can only be described as a mass whale evolution across the planet. Seems to deny all expected research. Whales are a massive part of the ocean's ecosystem, surviving off plankton and other microorganisms that make up their large body size, and when they pass away, they serve as a significant amount of food resources for smaller marine life to decompose and thrive on. Because of their importance on the ocean's ecosystems, whales have been a closely studied marine animal. Better understand the secrets surrounding their evolution, history, and impact on the marine world. But for reasons not entirely certain, many researchers have begun to notice that the average whale song has begun to decrease in frequency. Due to their environment, whales have naturally evolved a form of communication that uses different frequencies, and these are able to travel vast distances underwater. It's this communication system that researchers have said is changing, with whales of all species suddenly speaking at a much lower frequency. As published in the Journal of the Acoustical Society of America, the frequency of the Sri Lankan pygmy blue whale decreased from approximately 107 Hz to 100 Hz. This was over a decade. To date, this is the largest rate of decrease observed for any blue whale call. This new information has led to a few theories by researchers to explain the sudden frequency changes. Some have theorized that the noise of large-scale boats has dramatically risen, forcing whales deeper into the ocean and requiring them to speak lower frequencies to be heard over the background noises. Other researchers believe this change could be mostly due in part to decreased whaling. Regardless of what the cause may be, researchers are unanimous in that the changes in frequency shows evidence of a dramatic whale evolution. There will definitely need to be research more heavily to better understand its effects on the whale population and what it could mean for their communication. For years, people have been telling stories, and some of the most interesting ones are those that talk about the paranormal. While on Reddit, I got talking to someone who told me an incredible story. They revealed that they were a former U.S. Marine, and while stationed in California, something happened that changed their life. He said the following, and I'm interested to see what people make of it. Since it happened, I've tried to make sense of it, but at the time, I didn't open up about it because I know I would have been ridiculed. I won't go into too much detail, but at the time of the encounter, I was stationed in California. The encounter happened during a military exercise. We were dropped into the nearby forest. Around 20 minutes into the exercise, I'd split up from my group, but I could see them off into the distance. As I started to catch up to them, a loud knock caught my attention. The noise came from my left. The first thing I thought was that someone threw something at me. It turned out, though, that the loud thud wasn't created by an object hitting the ground, but rather by something. As I looked through the trees, I could see the outline of what looked like a large human. At this point, I would say I was around 80 meters from whatever this thing was, so I couldn't work out what exactly I was looking at. Again, though, I heard the loud thud, but this time I could see that this thing in the distance was creating it. It had hold of a thick branch that I would guess was around 4 feet in length and a few feet in circumference. After slowly moving towards the direction of the noise, I could see what appeared to be a humanoid-like creature. This thing stood approximately 7 feet tall, and each time I inched closer, it would hit the nearby tree with a branch in its hand, sending echoes throughout the forest. This time, though, I bolted it in the direction of my team, and I didn't look back. As I said, I've never told anyone this story, but I'm certain of what I saw. It's tough because I keep going over that day, and I know how far-fetched it sounds. But I know exactly what I saw. What I found interesting, though, is that after scrolling through Reddit and reading up on those that spent time in the military, a lot of them have experienced strange stuff that they can't explain. Although the majority of their stuff centers around the paranormal, it made me feel a little better that I wasn't the only one that had a strange experience. End quote. Many stories have come to the surface over the years involving Bigfoot, with eyewitnesses saying that enough people have encountered this cryptid that sightings should be taken more seriously. There have been many reported sightings of a massive legendary creature known as Bigfoot all over the world. They are mostly sighted in remote areas, sometimes in urban areas, and very rarely in city parks. However, the most unlikely place you'd think to see a Bigfoot is near a military base. Yet some researchers have argued that there's been more reports of Bigfoot being sighted by military personnel than civilians. Throughout the years, there have been a few reports that have been leaked from military installations, mostly those around the 1970s. By far the most notable and most credible is that of an encounter near Fort Lewis in the U.S. This is an Army military installation in Washington state, which is in the middle of a rather large wooded area. The year was 1978. A truck full of soldiers coming back from training exercises broke down at around 8 p.m. Attempts were made to restart the engine, but nothing worked. So the platoon headed off to the base on foot to bring back a tow truck. They left one Edwin Godoy to guard the truck until the tow truck arrived. He was left because he was the one who signed the truck out. Edwin spent hours by himself just sitting in the trunk. He was bored, but this evening would soon perk up. At around midnight, he began to hear strange sounds from the forest that the road cut through. The sounds continued to get louder and closer, prompting Edwin to get out of the truck, arming himself with a rifle and a flashlight. As he stood in front of the truck, sweeping the sides of the woods with his flashlight, he caught a glimpse of a large object moving directly in front of his trunk. It was a tall, broad creature entirely covered in hair that walked by swinging its body sideways. When Edwin shined his light at it, it stopped in its tracks and stared directly at him. They locked eyes for a short time before the creature began to run at him at a baffling quick speed. He shouted 3 times for the creature to stop and identify itself. However, the beast didn't reply and got close enough to cause harm to Edwin. Grit with fear, he shot the creature in the chest, this barely stopping the speed of the animal. It merely growled, grabbed its chest, and turned to the right and went back into the forest. In a few seconds, it was gone. After a long and fearful night, the mechanics finally arrived. After Edwin conveyed what happened, they were quite skeptical until one spotted the blood trail that led to the massive footprints pressed into the nearby soft ground. Shortly after, a radio call was made to the base explaining what had happened. The area was swamped by secretive government scientists and hazardous material suits. These researchers then began taking blood samples and setting cast of the footprints. The whole time, Edwin was told not to speak to anyone and was kept away from what was going on. After a short time, Edwin was quickly taken away to the base hospital. But surprisingly, instead of being examined by the base's medical staff, he was examined by a doctor from the Air Force that held the rank of full colonel. Years later, Edwin went on to reveal in an interview after the event had been declassified that rather than interrogating him, the colonel was very interested in every slight detail of the event, after which Edwin was returned to his barracks and told in no circumstances was he to tell anyone what happened. In 1972, a group of researchers at MIT calculated potential future scenarios of human society based on the trajectory of capitalism and industrial civilizations. They compiled their findings and published them in the book The Limits to Growth, which ended up becoming a bestseller. The main argument was that our society would collapse by the 2040s due to lack of natural resources. Recently, scientists reassessed these calculations and found that they still held true. A global collapse is still on track to happen within the next 2 decades. The leading cause of this collapse is the destruction and exploitation of natural resources by corporations and governments. The scientists explained that as long as these powers strive for constant economic growth, we won't be able to deter a collapse of our industrial civilization. They determined this outcome using a supercomputer to calculate 12 possible results for the future. Most of these scenarios all lead to the same ending: global collapse. They predicted that natural resources would dwindle so much that it would negatively impact economic growth and individual welfare would dramatically worsen. In their findings, the business as usual, albeit a new scenario, takes center stage as the most famous and ominous potential future. This scenario predicted that our economic growth would reach its peak in the 2040s before sharply declining. As economic growth plummets, so does the Earth's population, natural resources, and even food availability. The current rate of capitalistic ventures is not sustainable. So even if they continue to operate business as usual, it will cause living standards to fall. Their research is not suggesting a doomsday event, but rather a turning point for society. The scientists explain that the human race would continue, but our way of life and comforts would change as resources were bled dry by corporations. This argument is still being promoted as the leading concern for climate change protests, even half a century after the first released findings. In 2020, sustainability and dynamic system analysis researcher Guy Harrington decided to find out just how accurate these predictions still were and whether or not our society is still on track for a global collapse. Harrington utilized and expanded on research she had already begun pursuing at Harvard University together with our current real-world data. She published her study and current predictions in the November 2020 issue of the Journal of Industrial Ecology. In the publication, she explained that her findings were nearly identical to those determined by the MIT researchers in 1972. Harrington measured 10 different variables in our society, some of which included population levels, fertility rates, industrial output, and food production to determine collapse rates. She found that the BU scenario was the most plausible, showing a stop in economic growth and a sudden drop in living conditions. Another 1972 scenario, comprehensive technology or CT, was also indicated as a potential outcome in the publication. In this scenario, our technological achievements and advancements help reduce population levels and protect food production, even with our natural resources depleting. Although the burden of global collapse is lessened in this instance, capitalism still reduces natural resources until economic growth stops. Once economic growth is halted, our industrial society essentially collapses. There is still an opportunity to achieve the stabilized world scenario wherein humans actively limit economic growth before natural resources decline. While the population, pollution, and natural resources will still worsen in this scenario, we can rectify it before it's too late. With technological advancements, a change in policies and societal values can balance out the variables in our society and change our course before human welfare declines. To carry on from this, NASA scientists warns that Earth is due for an extinction-level event. In 2016, one of NASA's award-winning scientists explained the possibility of an extinction-level event. Going into detail at the annual American Geophysical Union meeting, he suggested to the attendees that policymakers should begin preparations because a comet or asteroid strike is inevitable, and there's not anything we could do to prevent such a cataclysmic destruction. Joseph Nutt has worked at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center for nearly 40 years and has won many awards for his work in astrobiology. He's also been an active proponent for doomsday preparations. Although he acknowledged the slim odds of an extinction-level strike, he argued that it's a random possibility. Since these types of dinosaur killer events are essentially 50 million years apart, Earth is due for another, and it's just a matter of when. Joseph's main point of his warning was not to instill fear in the masses, but to push society to begin preparations and actively pursue space research and advancements. He argued that we're nowhere close to being prepared for such a dangerous threat and called on NASA to lead the charge to improve our chances. He suggested that NASA invest in building out two types of spacecrafts, one that observes and a rocket that intercepts. If there does come a time when a giant comical asteroid comes barreling towards Earth, a rocket carrying a nuclear bomb could block and protect the planet. The most important aspect of preparation, Snuff explained, was reducing reaction time. We need to act swiftly, especially if the rock travels from locations challenging to observe, such as from the sun. Interestingly, though, this theory was recently tested by NASA. And they said that most of the outcomes and explosive did not do anything to the asteroid, saying that this simulation showed that the asteroid would stay on its course and would still make contact with Earth. However, NASA currently operates on a 5-year project span where it takes them years from the start of mission approval to the final launching. They would need Congress support for such a large project, which would be difficult to obtain since it requires such a large budget. Joseph estimates that this request would quickly run up several $100 million, and this would be just to build one of the spacecrafts. For those who are doubtful, Joseph reminded them of a close call event in 2014 where a comet passed very close to Mars. Scientists only found the comet a mere 22 months before it nearly collided with the planet, not enough time to prepare for a reliable protection plan if it had passed any closer. It really puts it into perspective about how insignificant we are in terms of the universe. It would only take a medium to large asteroid to wipe out the majority of life on Earth. All across the world are tales of mysterious creatures. Some of the most interesting ones are those that are encountered in isolated regions, such as jungles and places like Antarctica. Interesting story is that of organism 46b. Before information surrounding organism 46b can be discussed, the environmental context must be thoroughly identified. Reports of organism 46b's area of habitation rests within that of Lake Vostok, located more than 700 feet beneath the glacial surface of the ice at its shallowest depth and roughly 2,600 feet at its deepest region. It's at this depth that the ice from the Antarctic glaciers are under enough pressure to melt and form deep lakes. It's within one of these deep lakes known as Lake Vostok that the creature known as organism 46b resides in. A supposed leaked document surrounding the first attempts made by Russian researchers back on the 5th of February in 2012 while drilling to the lake surface made reference to the creature known as organism 46b. The report itself was titled Organism 46b and detailed an increasingly bizarre story in which Russian scientists claimed to have encountered a massive colossal squid residing in the lake that could release toxins into the water, could squeeze itself down into small sizes, take on weird shapes, change its physical colors, and cause a mild form of hypnotism if a person began to stare at the creature for too long. Here are quotes from the supposed letter, written by a man named Dr. Anton Padaka. We encountered organism 46b on our first day. It disabled our radio, which we later learned to our alarm was intentional. It's also able to paralyze prey from a distance of up to 150 feet by releasing its venom into the water. Tragically, my colleague and lifelong friend was taken out this way. He tread water wearing a blissful smile as the organism approached him. We watched helplessly as it used its arms to tear off his head, then popped the remains into his mouth. It was as if it had hypnotized him telepathically. It shaped itself into the form of a human diver. We thought it was one of our colleagues swimming towards us in scuba gear. By the time the closest scientists had realized what it had grabbed him and torn him to bits." End quote. Some variations of the legend claim that one of the tentacles of the creature had been chopped off, but that the severed tentacle later reanimated and strangled another member of the team. The legend ends claiming that there were a few surviving members of the expedition and that Russian officials captured the creature in an attempt to cover up the event. Fact-checking the story leads to a number of strange dead ends that come about in areas of documented factual events that otherwise should have been explored. Here is the completed timeline of the factual events of the late Vostok drilling expedition. Back in January 2011, Russian scientists Valery Lakin and Sergei Balat published a paper titled Vostok Subglacial Lake, Details of Russian Plans Activities for Drilling and Sampling. Valery Lutkin worked at the Russian Antarctic Expedition Arctic and Antarctic Research Institute at St. Petersburg, Russia, and Sergei Balat worked at the Petersburg Nuclear Physics Institute, Russian Academy of Sciences in Russia. The document detailed the first and only public plan for a Russian expedition into Lvivsk. Here is a portion from the introduction of the paper surrounding the expedition. The Russian Federation has developed a national project involving the drilling and sampling of Vostok Subglacial Lake, East Antarctica. The objective is to explore this extremely icy environment using a variety of techniques to identify the forms and levels of life that exist there. The project is funded by the Russian Federal Service. During the time of the published paper, the Russian Federation had yet to receive support from other nations of the world as their borehole efforts were actively going against the Antarctic Treaty, with the United Kingdom and United States petitioning the Russian Federation against borehole techniques due to the environmental impact of the sealed lake. Their opposition was due in part to the drilling techniques used by the Russian scientists, of which included the massive use of freon and kerosene, act as a lubricant for the drilling equipment, of which would immediately drain into the lake at the point of connection. Despite the Antarctic Treaty violation, the Russian Federation continued with their efforts. Within the published paper titled Vostok Subglacial Lake, Details of Russian Plans Activities for Drilling and Sampling, the scientists detailed a new piece of technology that would allow the borehole to use a transportation module that could be sent down into the borehole via new mechanisms and enter the lake. The diagram for the technology claims the module device and the borehole would only be 123 millimeters in diameter and impossible to send a diver into. However, given the secrecy of the project and the designs used, such a technology could have been sealed up to send a research team into the borehole if made slightly larger. The technology also shows evidence of human-sized transportation modules, given that the modules' designs had a height and width that would scale to fit a human body, and these would fit in a cylindrical tube of a height 3 times the tube's width. On October of 2011, Valery Lutkin, the co-author of the published paper, was at the Antarctic. The expedition continued for several weeks, up until the end of December, before issues first arose amongst the expedition. The reason for why Valery Lutkin first started his expedition in October of 2011 was due to October being the summer months for the Antarctic continent, keeping the location at its warmest for the expedition. The summer months only last from the beginning of October to the 5th of February. However, after the synth, the expedition must be called off due to temperatures plummeting below 40 degrees Celsius. On the 28th of December, the Russian team claimed they had less than 5 meters left to drill before striking into the lake and were confident they would meet their goal before the end of the Antarctic summer months. It was surely after this last transmission, however, that the team would then undergo a 6-day radio silence for reasons not entirely understood. This was an article published on the 3rd of February, 3 days before the reported breach confirmation of Lake Vostok. The world holds its breath, hoping for the best after 6 days of radio silence from Antarctica, where a team of Russian scientists is racing the clock and the oncoming winter to dig to an alien lake far beneath the ice. The team's last contact with colleagues in the unfrozen world was 6 days ago. Scientists from around the globe are unsure of the fate of the mission and the scientists themselves as Antarctica's winter draws near. Given the last transmission, it was believed that the Russian team would have boarded into Lake Vostok on the 29th of December. However, their glimpse of breach would come after a 9-day radio silence on the 6th of February, of which was the longest amount of time the expedition team could have waited before forcing the end of the expedition due to winter weather. This would have provided the team with more than 9 days to cover up any events that would have occurred shortly after the breach on the 29th of October. It's due to this that the sudden radio silence after the 28th of October provides a merit of truth to the claims of cover-up efforts, and over a week's span of time dealing with Organism 46B. Shortly after the end of the expedition, half of Valerie Lutkin's research team would end their careers in the Antarctic expeditions and leave the research team without further information surrounding the members. The encounter with the Organism 46B led to the reported deaths of several top-secret Russian scientists, and so many believe that this is why the document could have been leaked, as a warning to other researchers in the area. Despite the far-fetched abilities of Organism 46B, reports appear to match a number of known cases of squid and octopus entities. In fact, every single ability mentioned by the letters that Organism 46B might possess appears to match many of the abilities found in deep-sea species of cephalopods and environments that would be similar in lines, pressure, and water quality to Organism 46B. It is a detailed writing surrounding the theoretical ability of telepathic traits of the creature and how the ability could be scientifically explained. Understanding Organism 46B's ability to perform telepathic ability is both difficult and nearly impossible, as the mechanisms for telepathy are still not entirely understood in the modern day. However, assumptions and data information surrounding numerous marine animals can be made as to what might be responsible for their telepathic abilities. It's important to note that there is evidence and scientific endeavors in the realm of neuroscience. The ability to translate the neurons' near-random electrical impulse firings into readable information that can be displayed or understood. In fact, back in 1999, there was a research study by Dang Yang at the University of Berkeley, California that successfully recreated what a cat observes in the physical world using pure data retrieved from visual neurons. The implications of this finding means that if someone could create a technology so sensitive and accurate in picking up electromagnetic fields, one could remotely detect these occurrences coming from the human brain and work together the data required to translate your thoughts and brain signals into readable information. If we take this theory of data retrieval from the brains of animals via sensing electrical impulses and changes in the electromagnetic field, then there is evidence of evolution granting this ability amongst life here on Earth. Referred to as electroreception, it's a sense that humans do not seem to possess that gives animals the ability to perceive natural electrical stimuli in other forms of life around them. Electrical reception on Earth has only been seen to occur almost exclusively in aquatic life, where amphibious animals that spend their time in salt water, since salt water is a much better natural conductor compared to the surrounding air. This ability is so sensitive, in fact, that young sharks can recognize the specific characteristics and traits of electrical stimuli, and they use this to help them pick up on predators. Given the fact that Organism 46B is expected to live its entire life in a completely dark underwater environment, it's possible that the species could have evolved a complex form of electroreception. Here is a detailed writing surrounding the theoretical ability of hypnotic traits within Organism 46B and how the ability could be scientifically explained. Squids are one of the very few species in the world that can camouflage and change the pigments of their skin so rapidly that they can make a variety of colors. Additionally, the glass squid species is capable of using bioluminescence, and it does this to temporarily stun fish and seemingly hypnotize them to be consumed. Given the depth and lack of light deep within the underground Lake Vostok, it's of a high probability that if a large marine animal were to exist within the trap lake, they would also possess evolutionary abilities to generate bioluminescence. Bioluminescence tied with a squid's ability to alter the color of the pigments of its skin could create season-inducing colors and shape that could temporarily cause an individual to become hypnotized or undergo a seizure if one was to look directly at the creature. This could explain the hypnotic effects as reported in the leaked documents. Here is a detailed writing surrounding the theoretical ability of shape-shifting traits within Organism 46B and how the ability could be scientifically explained. The species is capable of squeezing through small openings and squeezing their body size down to impossible sizes. In fact, a 600-pound octopus is capable of pushing its entire body through a hole the size of a quarter. As long as an opening is large enough to allow the creature to fit its beak through, it will travel through the opening with relative ease. It's for this reason that the claim of shapeshifting abilities of Organism 46B are realistic to the species of which it seems to have evolved from. Additionally, a borehole the size of 123 millimeters would have been more than enough of a size to fit its body through if it were to make an attempt to reach the surface of the glacier. Here is a detailed writing surrounding the theoretical ability of toxic traits within organism 46b and how the ability could be scientifically explained. The use of toxins from organism 46b seemed to stem from real-life examples of cephalopods using small amounts of venomous toxins. The blue-ringed octopus is an octopus only roughly the size of a standard golf ball but contains enough venom to cause the demise of 26 adult men. The blue-ringed octopus also has a number of other strange abilities, such as the ability to use jet propulsion by funneling water to allow it to move faster in the water. It could be possible that organism 46b also possesses these abilities and is capable of ejecting venom. If the claims surrounding the creature are to be believed, then it has the following abilities that have allowed it to take out several individuals: shapeshifting hypnosis, camouflage, colossal size, ability to shrink, telepathy, and large quantities of toxins. Given its dangers and efforts needed to be contained by the Russian Federation as claimed by the leaked document, this could frail or mean the organism of 46b is one of the most dangerous creatures naturally living on planet Earth. Its ability to be weaponized for future efforts also seems to be a very real possibility, given the claims of the leaked document and other rumors that have surfaced around the creature. Jerusalem is an important place for many people. It's widely considered one of the holiest places in the world, and every year between 3 and 5 million people visit the holy city. According to the New Testament, Jesus was brought to Jerusalem as a child, and since then those who have visited the ancient city have said they felt a connection. One thing it's not known for is that of mysterious flying crafts. It's odd to think that the two are linked, but every year people who visit and live around Jerusalem report seeing mysterious flying objects. Online groups are some of the best places to find these objects, and because the majority of them don't reach the mainstream media, many people never see them, and most of these photographs go unseen. One recent image that made its way to an online group was this one, and it shows a strange-looking craft above Jerusalem. The person who posted the image explained that they were watching a live cam of the area and said that they noticed a large-looking craft hovering near the cloud line, estimating it was there for around 20 seconds or so before it quickly vanished. They said the following about the image: "As I was watching the live cam, I suddenly noticed something close to their clouds. This thing emerged because it looked like part of the cloud covering had moved, which then revealed the craft that appeared to be hiding behind it. The only way I can describe it is that this thing was dark in the clouds and was in the shape of a pipe. As I watched it, I could tell that it was just hovering there and that it looked like it was disappearing every second or so. Although I think this was because the clouds were passing over it, which meant it was being partially concealed. After watching the craft for around 20 seconds or so, it then darted to the left of the screen out of view. I'm not sure what this thing was, but it didn't look like anything you'd normally see in the sky. It doesn't match any helicopter, plane, or drone that I've seen. Due to the recent reports of strange-looking objects above and around Jerusalem, it's caused some to label this place as a hotspot, with some locals reporting that they'll often see fast-traveling objects in the sky that appear to vanish, large orbs that can be seen pulsating different colors, and large ships that have the ability to travel at extremely fast speeds, or whilst staying completely silent. It's for this reason that some amateur researchers have said that this place deserves the title of being called a hotspot, and that every year reports seem to increase. As with the majority of places that report these kinds of activity, capturing them on camera is notoriously difficult, especially if they're high in the sky or traveling at fast speeds. Phone cameras aren't built to take photographs of small objects in the sky. The minute people try to do this, the end result usually comes out blurry. This has been tested time and time again, and even trying to video or photograph a plane in the sky is extremely difficult. These long cigar-shaped crafts are actually one of the most reported crafts, along with the auburn disc. Eyewitnesses who see them often report these crafts as being long, black or gray in color, slender, silent, and also able to travel at high speeds. The issue that many amateur researchers have is trying to figure out what these things are, as no one has come forward to claim that it's them who's behind the sightings. One of the most interesting things about these crafts is that of their shape. They don't really match anything that we have in our skies. The only thing they could be compared to is that of an airship. But these are notoriously slow and can't vanish within the blink of an eye, with the top speed of these things coming in at around 17 miles per hour. The origins of these mysterious aircrafts are definitely not new. and they actually go way back before the invention of the airplane, with researchers saying that these were one of the first reported crafts that were seen in our sky that couldn't be explained. One person recently sent me the following message. I have a sighting that I'd like to share with you. I don't want to tell anyone I know about this because it goes against my beliefs. For the last few nights I've been seeing these strange lights above Jerusalem. I live very close by and I've never seen anything like it. The objects look like they're lodge balls that will pulsate. I could see them flying around in the air at high speeds. Oddly though, they weren't making any sound while doing this. They would occasionally pulsate and then roam the area again. It almost looked like the lights were searching for something. They weren't just flying randomly. They were dipping down and then back up again. I tried to take some photographs, but the lights were not very big, and they weren't showing up on the camera very well. It just looked like a blur when I saw the images. I've done some research online and I can see that others have seen strange lights in the sky above Jerusalem. I don't know what it was, but I thought I'd share my experience with you." End quote. This eyewitness sounds like they saw an orb. These crafts are known within UFO circles as they've been witnessed by many people. These glowing orbs come in a variety of different colors, ranging from blue, red, orange, yellow, pink, silver, green, and black, and most people who have seen them have said they appear to pulsate and that they can fly at extremely fast speeds. Those that have seen them have said they look to be under intelligent control and that due to how fast they fly it's near impossible to get a high-quality photograph. UFO researchers have looked into these reports and said that these crafts are some of the most interesting ones, with some saying that they remind them of hyper-advanced drones. Being a farmer comes with many challenges, but realizing that the property you own may be housing unwanted guests is definitely something that would frighten many of us. This is exactly what happened when a Turkish farmer took a photograph of his newborn calf. Mr. Mark took the photograph in celebration, however upon reviewing the photograph he noticed that he wasn't alone. In the background it looks like there's a tearing humanoid standing behind his newborn calf. The man said that he checked the photograph once he got home and couldn't believe that it looked like there was something standing in the background, saying that there definitely wasn't someone there when he was taking the photograph. The image immediately gained traction online, with some saying that it looks like a demon, while others said that it was a shadow person, a type of paranormal entity that's said to be one of the most commonly cited apparitions. Regardless, most people agreed on the same thing, and that's that whatever this is, it looks creepy. Not much more information was released about the photograph, with the farmer saying that he and his family went back to the farm and said they didn't see anything out of the ordinary. One person said the following, "Although this is creepy and I definitely won't be going back, this is a great photograph of a shadow person." Well, another person said this, "The minute I saw this photograph, I got a bad feeling. I don't think this entity is good. To me, it looks evil and it's even giving off bad vibes. I would love to know the history of that place and whether anything bad ever happened there. This is an incredibly creepy photograph." Paranormal researchers have said that there's a variety of different entities you can run into and that some are much better than others. The topic is highly debated, with scientists saying this topic can be easily explained and that the majority of these apparitions are nothing more than the human mind playing tricks on you, or lighting conditions making it appear like something is there when it isn't. Regardless, this hasn't stopped countless people coming forward with their own experiences. As mentioned, one of the most commonly reported entities is that of the shadow person. The shadow people are described as being black masses. They can often be seen around objects that are said to be haunted or in places where something bad has happened. One of the first things people say they feel when they see them is fear, and that it is as if they drain all the energy out of the room and only leave darkness. Some have reported them as having glowing red eyes, while others say they have black eyes. It's not known what they want, but those who have seen them have said they are banned. It's not just creepy places that house alleged spirits. Various universities across the world are said to house dark entities. And some of these universities have even opened up about them and said that some of the events that have been detailed can't be explained. Established back in 1963, the University of York, located in the city of York, England, has become one of the top-ranking universities in the world. According to the Sunday Times, they claim that the University of York is one of Britain's academic success stories, forging a reputation to rival Oxford and Cambridge in the space of 40 years, a statement that only helps to support the university's growing esteem and incredible academic ranking. Unfortunately, despite the university working to uphold the image of its high-ranking brand and quality learning environment, it appears that legends and rumors have begun to spread all across the city of York. That points towards the idea that the region could be inhabited by a number of terrifying and otherworldly spirits. In fact, the city of York itself has been nicknamed by many as the City of 1,000 Ghosts due to its record number of sightings and haunted buildings. Among the countless number of reported paranormal experiences at the university itself, there are claims from students that they have witnessed a number of ghostly apparitions of men, women, and children. One such report had even detailed that a number of individuals had witnessed an entire troop of Roman soldiers marching through the lowest cellars of the university. There also appears to be a reoccurring incident as if there's hundreds of kids buried underneath the university's foundations. Many have theorized that the cause for these paranormal hauntings could be due to the city's age, housing a number of historic landmarks and older structures that could date back as far as the 1st century AD. Also, archaeologists have found further evidence that places human civilization in the region as far back as 700 BC, though the findings are not conclusive and are heavily debated to this day. Many sites across the world that is said to be haunted all seem to have one thing in common, and that's that the building in question seems to have a dark history, with amateur researchers saying that if something bad happened in and around the building, this could help explain why people are encountering these mysterious entities. Adding that it's as if the building has stored some of the energy from that time period and those events get played over and over again. In fact, this is backed up by some paranormal researchers, as they've said that some eyewitnesses have reported seeing the same thing, and they explain that this is because these moments are stuck in time and it's like a cassette player that gets played over and over again. Again, these types of stories are heavily debated, but the paranormal certainty makes for an interesting topic, and it makes you wonder whether we share this planet with unseen forces. A man on social media posted a mysterious photo. He said that a strange handprint appeared on his wall, and no matter how hard he tries, it doesn't come off. He also notes that there's a couple of partial handprints below it. The individual goes on to say that he's seen many unidentified flying objects throughout his life, and that he's even been in contact with these beings. He says that this handprint is definitely not human, and when he's tried to line his hand up with it, it doesn't match, saying that the fingers are almost 2 inches longer than that of a human's. Said the following: "This is a video of a handprint that was left on my bedroom wall back in February. It only appears under certain lighting conditions, and it isn't a smudge. I can't wipe it away. I tried to demonstrate both qualities in this video. There are also a couple of partial prints in the lower left. The proportions of the hand are very narrow, but what really struck me is that the thumb is out of position. I can't align my thumb in the same position as the thumb in the print. I have a long history with abductions and have photos of markings, handprints, and footprints, and some of them date back decades. Why is this on my wall? My guess could be technology. The aliens typically come in and out through the ceiling. I assume this is similar to the technology that allows UAPs to pass through water at high speeds. Given the orientation of these handprints, they were left when the aliens were exiting the room at the end of the abduction. My assumption is that they're steadying themselves or using the water to guide themselves upward, although I've never been positioned where I could observe. The partial prints are low enough that they were possibly the first place their hands contacted. My guess is that their hands exude an enzyme or are coated with an applied substance, which I'm particularly sensitive to. I have a photo where it irritated my skin and left a partial handprint on my chest, which I'll try to add to the comments. My guess is that's why handprint only appears under certain light and can't be wiped away. Rather than dirt or something leaving a mark, the assumed enzyme interacted with the paint. I've been silent about my experiences, which date back to my early childhood. But with the growing acceptance of UAPs, it seemed like the time to begin to share. People in the comments section were interested in the handprint and asked various questions, to which the poster responded with the following. There were some excellent questions raised about the handprint video, some of which could be categorized as you or some other human could have made them. At first, I wasn't sure how to compare my handprint with the handprint that was left on the wall. Then I came up with the idea of using olive oil and a printer to make my own handprint. To get a clean print of my hand, I had to use exactly the right amount of olive oil and press on my right hand with my left, mostly around the pinky and the pinky side of the palm. If I didn't press, there were gaps left on the paper where my finger and palm didn't touch. Once that was accomplished, I put the photographs side by side and began comparing them. Apologies for the less than sharp photo of the handprint on the wall. The readability of the measuring tape should give you an indication as to the amount of blur. This is due entirely to the fact that the handprint disappears except in low light. If I use a supplemental light source, such as what I did when I was photographing my own handprint, or turn on the overhead light, handprint on the wall disappears. I demonstrated this in the video. Once again, I'm not trying to convince anyone, I'm simply sharing in the interest of disclosure. Observation 1. The handprints are of different sizes. The handprint on the wall is approximately 9.5 inches from the tip of the middle finger to the base of the palm. By comparison, my hand is approximately 7.25 inches. The tip of the middle finger to the base of the palm. If you use your own ruler to compare the size of your own hand, the handprint on the wall is unsettlingly large. Observation 2. The handprints are proportioned differently. The fingers of the handprints on the wall are at least 5 inches long, making up slightly more than 50% of the entire 9.5-inch hand length. By comparison, the fingers of my handprint are approximately 3.25 inches, which is less than 50% of the entire 7.25-inch hand length. Observation 3. The handprints are shaped differently. The base of my palm is significantly wider when compared to the width of my fingers. By comparison, the base of the palm of the handprint on the wall is roughly the same width as the fingers. Observation 4. The handprints have different thumbs. The thumb of the handprint on the wall is parallel to the fingers. My thumb naturally arcs outward from my hand. Additionally, the thumb of the handprint on the wall overlaps the boundary line between fingers and palm. It's impossible for me to move my thumb into this position. Observation 5. Only one of the handprints appears to have knuckles. My fingers naturally deviate at each knuckle. There is no such deviation on the handprint on the wall. The fingers of the handprint on the wall appear to be uniform in width from tip to base. Observation 6. Different finger anatomy. Human fingers are never perfectly strained. The fingers of the handprint on the wall appear to be perfectly strained. Observation 7. Captured action. This is subtle, but if you compare the placement of the fingertips to the palm, especially the index and middle fingers, they are slightly angled towards the ceiling. This implies a downward pull on the hand once the fingers come into contact with the wall. Placing a handprint on the wall would be static, like my handprint on paper. The handprint on the wall seems to have been left in the middle of an action. What's really interesting, in my opinion, is the applied anatomy behind the handprint on the wall. For a human to put their thumb in the same position would require a completely different hand structure than what we have. The fingers are longer than a human's and are perfectly straight where ours are not. This difference would suggest differences in underlying anatomy as well. In closing, it's impossible for this to be my own hand. As you can see here, my hand is a smaller size and structured differently than the handprint on the wall. It's also highly unlikely this is another human's hand for the reasons above, and as I've lived in the same place for almost 2 years and this print wasn't on the wall prior to its discovery. A bit of background: I've been abducted multiple times since childhood. I've documented large portions of it, but this is the first time I've shared outside of a handful of trusted friends. That said, I appreciate the supportive response to the video and intend to share more in the days ahead. Once again, I'm sharing this comparison purely for purposes of disclosure, and you are invited to draw your own conclusions. Space is one of the last unexplored frontiers for humans. Scientists, researchers, archaeologists, and historians have explained many of Earth's mysteries, but one place that keeps us guessing is that of space. A.V. Lope, who is the chairman of Harvard's Department of Astronomy, claims that he thinks he's found proof of extraterrestrials, and this came in the form of a strange space object that was detected traveling through our solar system. One of the reasons this caught people's attention is because it's not very often that you get scientists or researchers talking about this subject. The objects the professor is talking about immediately display some strange signs, and this caused astronomers and others from around the world to speculate what it was. The object was given the name of Oumuamua, but the professor has given some examples of why this object might not be a space rock, and that it could actually be a piece of alien technology. On the 19th of October, 2017, we were visited by something that scientists couldn't initially explain. It was called Oumuamua, and astronomers first noticed this object traveling through our solar system. The object in question had come from another solar system, and people quickly started to speculate what this object was. It could be seen traveling around the sun and then shooting away again. However, after this it was not to return, with them saying that the mysterious object had been in our solar system for over a century. The reason Oumuamua wasn't spotted until 2017 is because it wasn't close enough to reflect enough light for astronomers to pick it up. Even when it did get close, it was moving very fast and meant astronomers had very little time to observe it. Once the strange object flew around the sun, it was going further away, meaning it was getting fainter and fainter. The astronomers' very last observations from Hubble were on the 2nd of January 2018. On the 3rd of May, it was then seen outside of Jupiter's orbit. Interestingly, amateur researchers have said that there's several of these mysterious objects flying around our solar system, and one was recently found by someone who was using Google's guide. The individual who found it said that it stood out to them because it looked very similar to a Muamua, saying that they were able to take a screenshot and carry out further tests. They revealed that the object in question measures over 1,400 meters or 4,590 feet in length. Those who saw the image said that it looked very similar to a Muamua, suggesting that the two may be the same thing. Although scientists have said that these objects are likely asteroids, others are not so sure and have put forward more out there theories. One of the reasons they did this was because it didn't act like a typical space object, with researchers like A.V. Loeb saying that this could indicate that it's something entirely different. The first theory that was put forward was that it was an asteroid. The scientists looked at the stars of the object. It was 2,600 feet or 800 meters long and around 260 feet or 80 meters wide. However, it was reported that astronomers stated the object was not moving as it should. They put it up on the fact that Oumuamua showed a really strong non-gravitational acceleration. This tells the researchers that its motion indicated that gravity was not the only thing dictating its path. One of which is that this object is extraterrestrial in nature. The fact that it moves like nothing researchers have seen before could indicate that it's under intelligent control. Most scientists suggested that Oumuamua was likely something natural and that its acceleration was due to a natural phenomenon. The next idea was that this mysterious object was releasing a large amount of hydrogen and this was causing it to speed up. Interestingly though, not everyone has agreed with this idea. Going back, a new paper was published in the Astrophysical Journal Letters. Thiam Hong and astrophysicists at the Korea Astronomy and Space Science Institute have said they don't think the hydrogen idea holds up and that it wouldn't work in space. This has caused some excitement as some have gone back to the idea that this is alien tech. After all, there's many strange properties about this object that researchers can't explain. For example, the way it mimicked a comet but yet it didn't have a tail. Also, NASA themselves reported that the interstellar visitor is 10 times as long as it is wide and that this aspect ratio is far greater than any asteroid or comet observed in our solar system. The cigar-shaped object is still debated, and it seems with this recent paper being released, we aren't any closer to understanding what this mysterious object is. Dr. Bailey from Harvard University said the following about the object. I wouldn't say I believe it's sent by aliens, as I'm a scientist and not a believer. I rely on evidence to put forward possible physical explanations for observed phenomena. It seems, however, until we have more evidence, we can't come to a conclusion on what this mysterious space object is. Ultimately, it will be very difficult to find out more about Oumuamua as it's no longer in our solar system. According to some, Oumuamua is expected to reach the Kuiper Belt in around 2024. Loeb started to open its mind to the possibility that this mysterious space object could be something else, and that as mentioned it may be a piece of alien egg and that it made its way into our solar system. Those who heard about the professor putting forward this idea gave him problems, saying that it's not very often that someone in this field has an open mind and puts forward these kinds of theories, so when it happens they should be told that is appreciated. When it comes to the universe, it's fair to say that humans don't know very much, and why would we? Modern humans haven't been studying the cosmos for very long. So how can you expect us to know all of the answers? Every so often a discovery like this is going to come along, and there's nothing wrong with having an open mind about what it is and where it's come from. As of right now, scientists and researchers still disagree on what this object is and have said that we will have to wait for it to come back around again for us to study it in more detail. A man by the name of Adhar just posted this image, saying that thousands of birds suddenly fell from the sky in India. Adhar didn't give away his location, but did say it happened close to Maharashtra, saying that the birds could be heard in the sky and could be seen flying around in circles before they started dropping one by one. The man continued and said that people were taking photographs of the event but couldn't understand what was going on, why the birds were acting the way they were. Worryingly, Maharashtra officials reported that hundreds of birds had passed away in a similar manner, saying that samples were sent to the National Institute of High Security Animal Diseases and Pune's Animal Disease Investigation Center. The government has said the birds are healthy and shouldn't affect people's eating habits, but the question that still remains is why these birds are falling out of the sky. And why is this happening in other locations across our world? One resident close to the region said the birds suddenly started acting strange and that they went outside due to all the noise that the birds were making, saying that this isn't something they've heard or seen before. After observing the birds for around 10 minutes, they said that some of them did fly off, but the majority of them looked depleted as if they'd been shot by something. And one by one, they started to fall from the sky. What's odd about this is that they said that birds looked healthy and visually couldn't see anything wrong with them. This isn't the first time that residents from India have reported such an incident. In fact, back in 2020, thousands of birds were found on the shore of India's biggest saltwater lake. Over 2,500 birds were found in the region, all of which seem to have suffered the same fate. Rather warily, this happened during the same time as the other musk bird die-offs. During the months of December 2019 and January and February 2020, various people across the planet have reported that huge number of birds were found, all of which passed away under mysterious circumstances. It's not known what took the birds' lives, although a variety of different explanations have been put forward to try and explain what's going on. Some suggested that all these cases come down to natural phenomena, saying that these birds likely got hit with something, such as hailstones or other atmospheric conditions. However, this doesn't explain the most recent event that happened in India, with residents saying that there was no atmospheric conditions that would have affected the birds so much that they would fall from the sky. With others following on from this as saying that it was like the birds were hit with something midair and it caused them to fall to the ground. During 2020, it was reported that the amount of bird deaths in India was actually wrong, and instead of there being 2,500 birds, officials said the number was as high as 5,000. Indian authorities started to investigate what happened, with them saying that different species have become victims to the event. One official told the BBC the following: "We're counting the dead birds. They are strewn over the entire area around the lake. Some 20 to 25 birds who are still alive are being treated. At this moment, we suspect there was some level of toxicity and high levels of salt in the drinking water. We are also looking at other possibilities." However, a local birdwatcher came forward and said that nothing has ever happened like this in the region and that he thinks there's more to it, further saying that the birds were very distressed by something in the area. As of right now, no one really seems to know what's going on with these animals and why it's only affecting birds. Various theories have been put forward, which range from the Earth's magnetic field to global warming and cell phone towers being installed and tested in the region. Interestingly, some people have announced that after these tales have been erected, various types of wildlife from the region have started to act strange. This isn't just some out there theory either. According to the website Little Peckers, a site that specializes in bird health, they said the following in May 2018. The EU-funded review body conducted an analysis of 97 studies. It concluded that radiation from mobile phone towers, Wi-Fi, and broadcast transmitters is a potential risk to insects and bird orientation. The magnetic orientation of birds, mammals, and insects could be disrupted by magnetic fields. The authors of the review have emphasized the need to enhance our knowledge of EMFs and their impact on wildlife, asking for the risk to be taken more seriously. Electromagnetic fields produce radiation, and airborne species are at greater risk of being exposed to this. In addition, birds' feathers act as receptors of electromagnetic radiation. Studies have suggested that this radiation may cause psychological stress and reduce birds' ability to recover from such stress. Radiation could also be causing psychological issues, including mutated embryos. End quote. Recently, many of these birds have passed away near recently installed towers, causing some to question whether these things are affecting these birds. One person that lives close to one of these towers and who's an avid birdwatcher said it would explain the strange circling that's been observed, saying that these towers seem to have a direct effect on these birds and it's almost like it's confusing them. Another person said the following: "I've seen videos of these birds flying close to these towers and it seems to be messing them up. I'm not going down the rabbit hole of what some people believe. These are just my observations. I've seen this happen firsthand, and the only thing I could see within the immediate area was one of these towers. So I think that they're having some kind of effect on these birds." End quote. As of right now, officials and companies who are installing these towers have said they have nothing to do with it, and various tests have been carried out that show these things are 100% safe and are not behind what's happening to these birds. They continue to say that they're completely safe.